That's yeah, there's a couple. Yeah, I got like hospital, a couple of and then there's your turn. Oh, it's okay.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. I'm reopening the session from closed session. Roll call. Trustee Jacobson.
Here.
Trustee Chavez.
Here.
Trustee Griffin. Here. Trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Presente.
Trustee Land is here. All right. Our board representatives tonight are Bianca Santos and Jaime Lazaro. Welcome. Tonight, we have a team from Hannah Interpreting as our Spanish interpreters. For those who would like to attend the meeting virtually in Spanish, that option is available. Hannah Interpreting, would you please communicate that for us this evening? Thank you. Gracias.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. In order to provide language access, this meeting will have simultaneous bidirectional interpretation into Spanish and American Sign Language. If you're bilingual, you don't have to click anything. But if you're not bilingual, you're using your laptop, in a few seconds, you'll see an icon shaped like a globe at the bottom of your screen. Click on Language Interpretation and then select English. If you're using your phone or an iPad, then in a few seconds, locate the three-dot menu in one of the corners of your screen, click on Language Interpretation, and then select English. When you speak, do so at moderate pace because the interpreters are going to be simultaneously interpreting everything you say. A efecto de proporcionar acceso lingüístico, esta reunión contará con interpretación simultánea bidireccional al inglés y al español. Si usted es bilingüe, no tiene que presionar nada, pero si usted no es bilingüe y está en su computadora, en unos segundos verá un icono en forma de globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Haga clic en interpretación y después seleccione español o Spanish. Si está en su iPad o su teléfono, entonces busca el menú de 3 puntos o que dice More en una de las esquinas de su pantalla. Haga clic en interpretación y después seleccione español o Spanish y después aceptar, finalizar o done. Cuando hable, hágalo en español y las intérpretes estarán simultáneamente interpretando todo lo que usted diga. Gracias. Thank you.
Gracias también. If you wish to view closed captions of this meeting, please view the meeting on the San Mateo Union High School Board meeting YouTube channel. The link to the YouTube channel can be found on our website. You may view the captions in English as well as live stream our meeting tonight, and you may view the captions in a variety of other languages if you choose to watch this after the meeting has ended. Viewers may request additional accommodations by calling 650-558-2201. For our deaf and hard of hearing community, we have a team from Hannah Interpreting Services, and they will be interpreting our meeting this evening. We would like to ask that everyone speak in a clear and reasonable pace for our interpreters. Thank you. We will start with the flag salute. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely.
All right.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, reporting out from closed session. In closed session, the board, upon motion of Trustee Andrade Zuniga and seconded by Trustee Jacobson, moved to approve 2 of the special education settlements with a vote of 5-0.
Trustee Land.
Yes.
I don't know if that was the right time, but I'd like to make a motion about an item on the agenda
This is not the right time.
to change.
This is not the right time.
Okay, when would that time be?
That's coming up later.
Okay.
But thanks for your note. And when we get to that, we'll go there. Okay. I'm missing one of the, no? Okay. All right. So then we are going to go to the organization of Board of Trustees. I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Booker.
Thank you very much, President Land. So this evening, per board policy 9100, the term of the president, vice president, and clerk of the board shall be 1 year in length, commencing with the annual organization meeting of the board which takes place on or after the second Friday of December of each year. The office of the president, vice president, and clerk shall rotate each year at the organizational meeting, with the vice president becoming president, the clerk becoming the vice president, and the next highest person on the rotation list becoming clerk. So tonight, we'll need to also appoint a secretary to the board and authorize signatures if necessary. And before I entertain a motion to take action on the changeover of board president, vice president, clerk, and secretary, I'd like to just take a moment to say a few nice things about President Land and really congratulating him for a year of leadership and service to our students, our community, our educators, myself personally. And I just want to really say how much I've learned from you and appreciate you. You bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to our school district. I've really leaned heavily on that. I like our rapport back and forth. And while I know Leah is going to do a phenomenal job, I just want to say personally thanks. And we have a certificate here for you that we all signed, and it's really to Greg Land for his service as president of its board of trustees, December 15th, 2022 to December 14th, 2023, signed by all of us. So I just want to come over and say congratulations. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Right. Yeehaw.
Okay, with that said, I can entertain a motion for the transition.
I'd like to make a motion to install trustees Andrade Zuniga as president, trustee Griffin as vice president, and trustee Chavez as clerk.
And then secretary?
Randall.
Thank you. Okay.
Superintendent Booker as secretary.
Yep.
I'll second the motion.
Make a comment? Can we make a comment
Mhm.
before we vote?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Am I still doing it?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is, well, okay. I wrote this down because you know how I get, okay. This quote is found in multiple locations, but I'm referencing the California School Board Association's website, and it states, "Citizen oversight of local government is the cornerstone of democracy in the United States. School board members are locally elected public officials entrusted with governing a community's public schools. It is in my personal opinion that all elected officials, and locally, that includes those that serve on city councils and school boards, recite the pledge to the flag. We are all sworn in and have taken an oath to uphold the United States Constitution and the state of California Constitution. I have sat next to Trustee Andrade Zuniga, and I've enjoyed our conversations, and we are definitely in agreement on many areas. However, not in the area of the pledge to the flag. Trustee Andrade Zuniga does not participate in reciting the pledge.
I'm going to call that out of order.
No, it's
I'm
my
going to
public
call that
comment.
out of order.
It's my public comment.
It's not time for your public comment.
No, my comment about this vote. I want to explain my vote. I'm almost done. I'll talk faster. Does
But
not
your
participate
vote,
in the reciting, and I did not want to make assumptions, so I asked Trustee Andrade Zuniga if my observations were correct, and she confirmed they were. While I respect her reasons for not participating in the Pledge of Allegiance, I do not agree with her decision. I believe the elected officials should recite the pledge, and I especially believe the leader of elected governing board should participate in the pledge, and for this reason, I'll be voting no on our board reorganization as is currently presented. I just wanted to explain my vote.
I knew that was
Trustee
the
Lamb.
reason why you asked me.
Well,
that,
I
and
wanted to
do
ask
it.
you a few months ago, but I've been,
I just wish you would
You know
have.
what? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I get to be chair for like about 5
No,
more minutes. So in this, I'm going to say that is, you have every right to vote the way you want to do.
and I wanted to explain my no
If we
vote.
wanted to do, unfortunately, you're supposed to do it after you vote, not before.
Oh,
So, but
sometimes
technically,
sometimes we have
that's what it's
discussions.
supposed to happen is we're supposed to call the vote and then you can say vote with explanation.
So we have discussions before we vote.
Sometimes we
Uh-uh.
have discussion. This is not a discussion item.
Well, it is
So-
an action item, actually. Yeah, so thank you, Trustee Land, for letting me speak.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to do a roll call vote.
Okay.
So we have a vote in a second, a motion in a second. Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote for it's the slate, not just one?
It's the slate, yeah.
So do I vote and then make a comment? Or
Yes,
I vote aye.
you can say I, and you can always explain yourself right now. It's like I,
Okay, I will say aye, but I'm glad that Trustee Chavez brought this to my attention because I think just as I believe in free speech, I don't believe in compelled speech. But I do think I would be interested to know trustee Andrade Zuniga's reasons for not participating in the pledge. I think that as government officials and sworn in, that we do swear allegiance to the Constitution of the United States of America and to the Constitution of the State of California. And we do so freely and without reservation. And if the reasons that preclude you from saying the Pledge of Allegiance also preclude you from maintaining that oath, I think it should be addressed.
Thank you. Trustee Griffin,
Aye.
trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Aye.
Trustee Land, aye. So with a vote of 4-1, we are reorganized. I am going to be passing the gavel out of my possession over to trustee Zuniga. Thank you. I just want to say it has been a pleasure to serve on the board as the president this year. And I'm looking forward to serving right here in this seat.
Thank you. Yes,
Oh,
thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we have one more vote to do on this topic, and that's the representative for the County Committee on School District Organization.
I'd like to actually volunteer for that. That's usually what we do,
Sure.
is we usually ask for volunteers. So, and we can always take a vote if we want.
Do we have
but-
to take a vote?
Well, if anybody else wants to run,
Does
I mean,
anybody
I'd like
else
to do it.
Want to?
It's one meeting.
This year was canceled, but.
Right.
but yeah,
So I'm willing to take it on for
Yeah,
my,
great.
you know,
that's
Thank
great.
one more time.
Thanks for doing that.
Great. So I guess since there isn't an order, there's no agenda item for me to respond to, or as a dialogue. Can I respond personally, or do I respond in open site? Like, what do I do?
You have a choice. You can respond during governing board comments.
Which is
during-
coming up.
Which is coming up
Sure.
during that time.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I will be more than happy to.
So just by affirmation, can I be appointed to the committee?
Yeah, I'd rather it be
Reorg.
done with a motion and a second and a
I'll
vote.
move.
I think it's
I'll
better that
move.
way.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
All right, with the motion by trustee Griffin and the second by trustee Chavez, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion carries. Mr. Land, trustee Land, you are our representative for the County Committee on School District Organization.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
May I ask if now is the time for me to make a motion about the agenda?
Point of order. So in here, we have the public comments part, governing comments part, then it's communications, recognition, and consent agenda. When we get to consent agenda, usually it's approval of the agenda and change of the consent agenda. So I would think at that time you would change the order of the meeting.
Okay, it's not a consent agenda item. Is that still?
No,
the
I know,
time?
but consent agenda and agenda are both the items that are supposed to be at that point in time.
Great.
That's the order in which you would bring up a change of like what, something you want to change, unless
Okay,
it is during board government comment time that you want to make a shift. Okay. Do you
Thank
see what
you.
I'm saying?
yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And usually consent is about the time when we make changes with the agenda.
Well, this is off to a real rocky start. President Zuniga, why don't you take over?
Thank you.
I was just
Okay.
Thank you, trustee Lamb. I appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on to public comments. And if you are joining us in person and wish to make a comment about an agenda item or during the public comments section at the beginning of the agenda, please fill out a request to address the board form and submit it to the secretary. This form should be given to the secretary before the agenda item begins. If you are joining us virtually, use the raised hand feature on Zoom to be recognized. When invited to do so by the board president for each item on which you wish to comment, you will be admitted to speak as a panelist during your public comment period. The board president will call on you. Please note that the comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public comment depending upon the topic and number of persons wishing to be heard. Now, Ms. Aquino, how many cards do we have?
We have 8, President Andrade Zuniga.
Okay, and which one is the last one that you've received?
I apologize for the pronunciation. Ofer Yehadai?
Okay, that will be the last public comments I will receive in person and then online.
There are currently 2 hands
2.
raised.
Okay, and the second person will be the last. Virtual 3. Okay,
The third just went, so third, so Mar Hudson would be the last one.
okay. Hudson will be the last comment for public comment online. Thank you. And I will afford the 3 minutes. Please make sure you stick to the time that's been allotted so we can hear everybody's comment as they're all important. So can I have the first comment, please?
Manat?
First, I bear witness, I don't know, is this on? Okay. First, I bear witness to the one, the most merciful. I bear witness to this wretched
Manat,
history.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Can we have the time clock, please? Oh, it's there? Okay, great.
The right corner.
Oh, thank you. It's
Thank you.
small. Okay, thank you.
First, I bear witness to the one, the most merciful. I bear witness to this wretched history of colonial attempts of domination. I bear witness the American nation, which was born in genocide and has popularized genocide wherever its hands lay. I bear witness that Palestinian people were born in dignity and faith. I bear witness to their resistance and integrity that exposes the failure of those who call themselves leaders, including here in this room. I bear witness that world leaders have created a killing machine they cannot control. I bear witness to the death parade, and I still believe in life. I bear witness all martyrs are alive. I bear witness to the plight of oppressed peoples from Turtle Island to the Caribbean, to the Atlantic, to the seas. I bear witness that many educators and students do what we can to speak and act toward a more just world against the censorship and punishment in this district and in this country, although it is much less than what Palestinians are owed. America is predatory and manufactures apocalyptic conditions in homelands like Gaza. For perspective, there are 9,000 students and teachers and staff within this district's 6 comprehensive schools and continuation school, bridge, and middle college programs altogether. This year in 2023. In other words, everyone has been wiped out, and this is still not enough death. If you double that number, it's still several thousand short and counting. From American manufacturers, Israel drops 2,500-pound bombs used to sink warships on the civilian homes of Gaza. More than 20,000 Gazan people have been martyred and massacred, and more thousand under the rubble of their homes, schools, hospitals, churches, and mosques. 25,000 Gazan children are now orphaned. 90% of Gazan people are displaced from their homes. The bombardment of Gaza has become more severe than Hiroshima in World War II. This is a land strip stretching from San Mateo to San Francisco. This is not complicated. This is genocide. This is ecocide. It is mass disabling. It is wholly insidious that Palestinians must document and record their own genocide so the world believes them. And yet this district does not. This district has not so much This district has not so much as acknowledged Palestine or acknowledged Palestinian students and teachers at its schools. My face is a migrant, and to you, I and the faces on the screen may always be terrorizing. Rather than the people in the White House. As a Hillsdale student from 2012 to 2016, I was scared into silence to speak about the horrors America is responsible for in our homelands. And as an educator, I'm constantly told it is not my place. Let me tell you, this place, this land isn't mine. I'm not supposed to be here. Neither are you, neither are most students. This is not our land. People must migrate here because they are hunted in their homeland. If you remember Vietnam, Cambodia, Guatemala, El Salvador, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, Philippines, in addition to Palestine, all ELD first and
Manat, you
second
have 5 seconds. honey.
generation
Thanks.
students, because they are hunted and bombed and massacred, they're terrorized and starved. The most commonplace of refuge is at the doorstep of the hunter. The hunter will take them in as their trophy, and
Manat,
because
you're
their
at
hunter is
time.
also their savior. One moment, sir. Their mode of arrival is captive. I did not choose to be here, and here
Okay,
I am.
Okay, we need to stop. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Lisa Wright.
Good evening. Lisa Wright here. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to our comments tonight. You may recognize my name because I've written to you a lot, and sometimes I'm critical. I know that.
Ms.
Um,
Wright, can you speak into the microphone? Yeah, thank you. It's hard to hear.
Some of my emails are critical, and I realize that, but I hope that you understand that they're like that because I really care about education. I think that the mission that you all do is extremely important. And the last couple meetings and even the start of this meeting have given me a new appreciation for the difficult job you do. I realize it's a delicate balancing act. And there's a lot of pressure, and there should be, because what you're doing is important. So I just wanted to come today to say thank you for what you do, but also to say that, you know, people in our district are scared. They're seeing the war. People have both sides of people have families on both sides of this conflict. They're emotional. The emotions are raw. They're hearing about bomb threats and hate crimes. And I think no matter how good your intentions are, whatever official positions the district takes are bound to hurt someone. You know, people are raw. And because of that, I think this controversy doesn't belong in the classroom. It's too soon. It's too complicated. And it's complicated. And it is important to make sure that our students, all of them, your child, and other people's children
Order, please.
feel
Order.
safe in the classroom. And because of that, because it's so raw, this just doesn't belong in the classroom, at least not now or not anytime soon. So leaving these issues out of the classroom will give your teachers the time and the space to do what they do best, which is teach the approved curriculum. There's barely enough time within the school year to focus on English, math, history, biology. And by leaving controversial issues out of the classroom, you're giving them time to do what they do best, which is to prepare kids to reach their fullest potential for a positive school environment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Ron Patel.
Thank you. Billions of people around the world are about to celebrate the birthday of a Jewish man born in Bethlehem over 2,000 years ago. At the same time, most of them don't think the Jews lived there before 1948. After the Jewish revolt against Rome as an act of revenge, the Romans changed the name of the land from Judea to Palestina, even though Greek Philistines were eliminated 800 years before. In 1920, in the San Remo Conference, the Allied Supreme Council redrew the map of the Middle East. The land called Palestina, which include Israel and Jordan, were given to the British Empire with the mandate to create a national home for the Jewish people, to give Jews the land that was taken from them. Unfortunately, the British ignored the mandate and gave away 75% of the ancient land of Judea to start a new Arab state called Transjordan. The countries created by the British Empire in the Middle East have been accepted as binding by the rest of the world, except Israel. The only area in the Middle East that has been called occupied is a tiny sliver of land called Israel. In 1941, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem met with Hitler and devised a plan to deny the Jews the claim to their land by renaming the Arab population in Palestine the indigenous Palestinians. So every time you chant Free Palestine, not only are you calling for the elimination, extermination of the Jews, but you are supporting Nazi propaganda. The Jews are the only nation that inhabits the same land, bears the same name, speaks the same language, and worship the same God as they did 3,000 years ago. When archaeologists dig in Israel, they find ancient artifacts in Hebrew. Last month, we all heard the unrelenting support by some of the members of this community for Hamas. I want to make clear that Israel wants peace, while Hamas wants all Jews dead. For some reason, the
Order,
media have
please.
ignored the atrocities committed by Hamas.
I can't.
We're all the organization to stand up for violence against women. Some of you view the situation through an oppressor, oppressed. I would like to get
Yeah,
more time.
okay.
She's stealing my time.
Stop.
She's stealing my time. I would like to get my time back. I
Okay,
would like to
stop.
take my time back. I would like to get my time back.
1 second.
Some of you view the situation through an oppressor, oppressed
I'm gonna have you
lens.
stop for a moment. We're gonna stop your
I
time
would
for a
like to
moment.
get my time back.
Hold on.
Do you understand what it means to be bomb? Yes, we know.
I would like.
Stop talking 1 second. We're
I
trying to-
had more than a
1
minute left.
second,
I'm
sir.
sorry. You're cutting
1
into my
second.
time.
1 second. Yes.
No, because the things that what if we were in Gaza right now? Huh?
Ev-
We're not.
But everybody needs a turn, whether we like the comment or not. We have to listen to everyone.
Why?
We have to. It's,
The United States of America.
I know.
Not everyone. Not everyone. Yes, everyone.
Come
in
down
the
my
United
next year, I
States
get
is
you.
citizen.
Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
and what-
You want me to excuse her out?
This is a school board meeting, huh?
Yeah.
Go ahead and run for office.
So
Go for it,
I want to
but not
encourage you
here.
to pause the meeting.
You're
We
not
should
gonna run
pause
for
the
meeting,
meeting
and please sit
to
down
have
and listen
order,
to everybody
and then I
else's
can do what I
comments
need to do.
and learn something.
Okay, we're going to pause the meeting. So, sir, if you could take a seat.
Can I please finish my?
Can you take a seat, please? We're going to pause the meeting. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to leave and the person who was yelling back with you, I'm going to have to ask you to leave as well. We cannot have this back and forth
No problem.
yelling. No, I need to ask you to leave as well. Please. Thank you. I am not going to tolerate this. And if not, we'll shut the whole thing down. Then nobody, no, I asked you to leave. I am asking you to leave. Please.
So I was not able to speak, but now I have to leave completely.
Yes, because you were screaming back and forth. Please. Ma'am. Yes, we are going to take a break. Thank you. Mr. Patel, I'm going to bring the clock back so you can have some of your time back. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you for that, and thank you for bringing everything to order. During the meeting last month, we heard a lot of people unrelenting support from our community to Hamas. I wanted to make it clear that Israel wants peace, while Hamas wants the Jews dead. For some reason, the media have ignored the atrocities committed by Hamas. We're all the organization that stand up against violence against women. We're the Me Too movements. Some of you viewed the situation through an oppressor-oppressed lens. Israel is neither an oppressor nor an apartheid state. I debunked this during the November board meeting. You can watch it if you don't remember it, and I can email you. Just email me and I'll email it to you. You don't have to be Jewish to fight evil. You don't have to be Jewish to fight Hamas. You just need a moral conscience. Is it so hard to condemn rape as resistance? Can you justify placing a baby in an oven and burning him alive? They start with the Jews, but they're coming after you next. What part of death to America, death to Israel don't you understand? Members of the board, you have to stand up to evil. You need to protect our kids. You need to teach and not indoctrinate. You need to fight the Hamas propaganda in our schools that our kids are complaining on a daily basis. My kids and their friends are complaining what they're hearing from their teachers. And you need to do everything in your power to prevent a second Holocaust. As Albert Einstein said, the world would not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. What is the next speaker?
Shira?
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak up. My name is Shira Mendelevich. My son will attend high school in his district next year. Following the curriculum that Auckland Teacher Union, the OEA, promotes, and what I've read about the ethnic studies curriculum, I am deeply concerned about the education my son will receive next year. I have several concerns, yet due to the time limitation, I will share with you only one. My concern is about the black and white thinking, oppressor versus oppressed, that students are taught to think about conflicts, any conflict. Most of history is messy and complicated and doesn't easily fit in this narrative. For example, it is said that Israel is the oppressor. Have you looked carefully at the history of the region for the past 123 years? Are you aware about massacres happening in Israel by Palestinians before the State of Israel was established? Do you know how many wars the Arab states started against Israel? Are you aware of multiple attempts from the Israeli side for peace that were rejected by Palestinians? These are only few examples. And I'm asking myself as a parent, is black and white thinking about the conflict, any conflict, is how you want young adults to be educated? Okay. I think that ethnic studies should be the place for people from different cultures to understand each other's point of view, especially in this area where there are many people from different backgrounds that many times are in conflict in the place they come from, and here they need to live together. Last meeting, after the speeches ended, Trustee Land was talking about two students, Israeli and Palestinian, who used to be friends and on October 7th harmed their friendship. With his help, things got better with them. I think this is a beautiful story. And I think this should be the aim of ethnic studies. And I ask the Board of Trustees to continue this path. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Ofer?
Good evening, esteemed board members and everyone present. My name is Ofer Izal Barnea. I'm a Foster City resident and a parent for two kids. Thank you for taking comments and being so patient and being open and listening to us, the public, in these dire times. I'm deeply concerned about the recent surge in anti-Semitic incidents in the Bay Area schools, exacerbated by the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Additionally, I've observed the curriculum of ethnic studies becoming a breeding ground for political indoctrination, disguised as free speech and inclusiveness, contrary to its intended purpose. My family history, shaped by violent and aberrant displacement from communist Romania in the 1950s and in the aftermath of the Holocaust, installed in me the importance of tolerance to all, not just Jewish people. I grew up in Haifa, a city of many faiths, surrounded by diverse friends. I was speaking Hebrew, Romanian, Arabic, English. I had friends which were Muslims, Catholic, Orthodox, you name it. We embraced differences while engaging in open and respectful debates. Sometimes we agree, and sometimes we don't. But it was always through conversation. However, in our school district, including this one, I've witnessed a dangerous oversimplification of complex issues. Students are being encouraged to categorize everything as oppressor versus oppressed, hindering critical thinking and fostering a divisive atmosphere. This is the basis for political and purposeful indoctrination. As a scientist, I emphasize the need for an unbiased, fact-based approach to curiosity. A balanced curriculum incorporating diverse viewpoints is crucial for fostering critical thinking skills in our youth. I implore the board for 3 actions. Restrict personal agenda from the classroom and school grounds. Disallow political demonstration on school grounds while school is in session, and promote inclusive speech in the ethnic study curriculum without politics, allowing equal participation of multiple views. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comment. Next comment.
Irina?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Irina. I'm a resident of San Mateo, and I have 3 children in the district. I'm here today to make a case that this school district not be allowed to become a place for hateful rhetoric and political indoctrination. But first, I want to share a personal anecdote. I was born in the Soviet Union, where schools were instrumental in indoctrinating children to believe in communism at all costs. We were taught there was only one way to think about the world. You're either a communist and therefore good, or a capitalist and therefore bad. When I was 9, my family decided to flee the Soviet Union as refugees. Being Jewish, my parents and grandparents faced systemic discrimination. But when my parents told me that we're moving to America, I burst into tears. America was a capitalist country. How could my parents want to move there? You see, I didn't know back then what it means to have freedom of thought, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion. Only later did I appreciate how lucky I was to grow up in the US, to be taught how to develop my own opinions and think critically about complex issues. Unfortunately, what we're seeing play out in many school districts in the Bay Area, including this one, is the opposite of those values that I learned in the US. Students are being taught to bucket all people and countries into one of 2 categories, oppressor or oppressed, very much like the communist capitalist framework that was prevalent in the Soviet Union. Children are being taught to hate Israel and even the United States. Some teacher unions and individual educators are pushing to bring hateful political ideology into the classroom. And instead of helping our children to develop critical thinking skills, are brainwashing them to parrot political slogans. The desecration of the menorah at Lake Merritt and Oakland that happened during Hanukkah this week is a symptom of the hateful indoctrination that is being promoted by the Oakland Teachers Union, OEA. When the school district allows teachers to bring political opinions and radical ideology into the classroom, it sends a message that the community supports this. We cannot allow for hate crimes to happen in our community, and we cannot allow hate ideology and indoctrination to live in our schools. I would like to ask the board for 3 things. Do not allow teachers to bring their personal political opinions into the classroom. This violates board policy and ed code. Teachers must adhere to approved curriculum and always remain objective. When teachers discuss the conflict in the Middle East, it cannot be one-sided. Do not allow teachers or students to promote walkouts or political demonstrations during school hours or on school property, and promote a mutual understanding instead of division and identity politics in our schools. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Adam Taub.
Thank you. My name is Adam Taub. I'm a concerned Jewish parent, an active member in the Jewish community. Last time I spoke before you, I followed a number of very hateful comments that were laden with misinformation that maligned Israel and called Zionism racist and evil. When I spoke last, I assumed best intent. I explained that anti-Zionism is in fact anti-Semitism. No amount of hateful lies makes that less true. What is Zionism? Zionism, put simply, is a belief that Israel has a right to exist as a sovereign Jewish state. With that comes the right to defend itself. A ceasefire, what is that? It was what Israel had with the people of Gaza, led by the terrorist organization Hamas on October 6th, before Hamas led the brutal massacre of Israeli civilians, which included the rape and gleeful murder of men, women, children, and babies. Israelis as well as citizens of many other nations. In addition to this heinous attack and war crime, Hamas committed a further war crime by taking 240 hostages, many of which still remain captive. On the topic of war crimes, Hamas, as well as other terrorist organizations embedded in the Gaza Strip, which Israel unilaterally pulled out of in 2005, have been shooting rockets at Israel's civilian population centers since I was a child. In fact, during my first trip to Israel during the Intifada, my visit to the Mahane Yehuda market was canceled because it was bombed by a terrorist just 3 days before. Rockets, as many as possible, fired at Israel year in and year out. So to the young woman who asks if Israelis know what it's like to be bombed, the answer is yes. For those who call for a ceasefire, let's all get in a time machine and head back to October 6th, 2023. That's not an actual option. It's a sick joke for the families of those who mourn the loss of their children and loved ones. Israel did not want this war, but now it must defend itself and excoriate Hamas. Demand a return of hostages. Demand an unconditional surrender of Hamas. You will have a ceasefire. None of this, in my opinion, is appropriate to be taught in schools today. As we saw in the teach-in from Oakland with 70 to 100 teachers tuning in, even when it was not sanctioned, there's a lack of trust among parents in our community toward teachers and administrators. I ask all of you here today to live up to your responsibility to look after the children in our community. Anti-Semitism has reached alarming rates. The Hanukkah that was destroyed in Lake Merritt is just one of dozens and dozens of examples in our own area.
Can you start wrapping up your comment?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please protect our children. It's a moral responsibility, and it's also your legal one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last in person, Ophir.
Hi, my name is Ofer, and I'm actually gonna change my speech completely after what just happened 7 minutes ago. I have 4 kids. My oldest goes to high school, and she just got her driver license. So in the past couple of weeks, we spent some quality time driving together. Again, I wasn't preparing to talk about that, but I did ask her because I saw on TikTok there was trending this Bin Laden kids kind of praising Bin Laden. Have you seen? Are you on TikTok? Well, on TikTok, kids at the age of my kids, currently quoting from Bin Laden letters. And I asked her, do you know who Bin Laden was? She said no. She knew about 9/11, but she didn't connect the dots. She's in high school. I'm not proud of it, but that's reality. I saw what happened again, 10 minutes ago. I'm kind of shaky. I'm a grown, strong adult. I'm afraid. And I think it's very, very likely that we'll have a boy or a girl, a Jewish boy or a girl in this school district that will get hurt if this does not get under control. And it will happen during school time, in recess, right before, right after. And we couldn't say that we didn't see it coming. I was literally afraid. When we touch this sensitive topic without sticking to the facts, without representing both sides, with bringing politics into the classroom, it is dangerous. And again, there are maybe 20 million Jews in the world versus I don't know how many. We are a minority. So I'm asking you, protect our kids. When it's too late, it's too late. Thank you.
That was the last speaker. Mhm. Okay, we'll move on to virtual comments.
Benjamin Bakishi. You may unmute and begin.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Bakshi. Good evening, Superintendent Booker and the esteemed board members. I am a dual resident, a dual citizen. I grew up in Foster City, California. I went to the Jewish Community Day School that was located in San Mateo and is now in Foster City. I went to Bowditch Middle School and then went to San Mateo High School. Currently, I am with my 3 children and they are being educated at the Jewish Community Day School and Warnick Jewish Day School. I stand here before you today to advocate for a fair and balanced approach to education, especially concerning topics that resonate deeply with the Jewish community, such as Zionism and the current Israeli-Palestinian conflict. My personal journey and that of my family have given me a unique perspective on these issues. My parents fled Iran in 1979 amidst rising anti-Zionist and anti-Western sentiments, which culminated in murder of Jewish intellectuals and Zionists. Growing up in the United States, I encountered anti-Semitism in schools, an experience that no child, regardless of their background, should endure. This history is not just personal, but it mirrors the collective experience, as you have heard today, of many Jews whose families have navigated tumultuous paths from persecution to freedom. And we are so grateful to have the United States of America that allows for the freedom for everybody to live and to be free. In Israel, where I was living until October 10th, in Tel Aviv, a mere 45-minute drive from the Gaza border, my family and I were under personal attack. The events of October 7th, followed with their ongoing missile attacks, instilled us a mortal fear that led us to seek refuge in Foster City. However, moving to California did not shield us from the specter of anti-Semitism. The recent escalation of threats from groups like Hamas themselves are calling for the direct targeting of Jews and Americans worldwide and has profoundly impacted our community. The Jewish Community Day School had to cover Jewish symbols on the day that Hamas announced that all people should kill Jews worldwide. And this week, Hamas is now asking for the attack of Americans worldwide. My friends that I grew up with here who had never owned guns are
Please
now
start-
trained guns
Please
owners.
start wrapping up your comment.
And local Jewish centers are concealing their Jewish identities. I ask that you please provide a balanced, comprehensive view of complex international issues that include the Palestinian conflict with Israel and other conflicts. Prohibit the infusion
Okay, that is time. You're 15 seconds over.
Okay.
We need the next person, please.
Jess Hudson. You can unmute and begin.
Good evening. I am deeply concerned that Manat Al-Atma was fired from substitute teaching for speaking about Palestine. Ms. Al-Atma is a kind, talented, and impactful teacher who I know well. If it wouldn't be appropriate to fire a Jewish person for their support of Zionism, it is equally inappropriate to do so to others, particularly a Muslim person who values decolonization. Discriminating against her and others for political or ethnic differences in this way is shameful and completely unacceptable. Tonight we heard we must listen to everyone. Yet this school district is willing to fire qualified staff for being a small voice in a sea of dissent and a safe place for students like mine who support Palestine.
Ms. Hudson? That's it? Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Hudson. Next comment, please.
Last virtual is Mar Hudson. You can unmute and begin.
My voice wavers not because I am in doubt, but because I am shaking with rage and flooded with grief. I ask you genuinely, when will the death be enough? I will be 17 next month, and 3 days ago, a 17-year-old Palestinian journalist, a young boy, sobbed to the world in the face of death while buildings collapsed and bodies bled and toddlers sobbed behind him, 25,000 orphaned, 20,000 martyred in collective punishment. Please tell me how the relentless murder of thousands of people, thousands of children and students keeps Jewish people safe. How does that keep Jewish people safe? It doesn't. And it does not make me feel safe as a student to see my most impactful educators and mentors being fired for sharing opinions that I also hold. It does not feel safe that this board is clearly demonstrating that anyone who does not hold a Zionist perspective can easily be removed. That is not a commitment to education, that is censorship. Through my sophomore year, Manat Al-Atma arranged her classroom chairs in a circle so that her AS English students could be seen. They kept a snack basket in the corner of the room so that all of us students felt cared for. She saw us and spoke to us as whole, blossoming individuals with something to say and beliefs that mattered. She is a deeply compassionate and qualified teacher, one that was removed for talking about real history and holding space for the truth that colonized students face and how that impacts their learning. I have not been able to sleep, learn, or live, frankly, as I mourn the seemingly endless death, and as I watch everyone around me move on as if genocide is nothing to address and nothing to protest. It is a shame that you value optics and hegemony over the education that you allow students to access. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
And that concludes our public comment. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item, governing board comments. Does anybody want to begin?
Sorry, are you saying governing board comments?
Yes.
Sorry, I'll take a
Okay.
turn.
It's a lot.
Well, I want to thank all the speakers, and what I am going to say is more about what I think education is supposed to be about. I've devoted my life to education. I've been a teacher, a parent, been on the school board in elementary school district, high school district, preschool district. I really want to say one thing that I'm very proud of, and that is that I know that in all the education aspects that I've done at every district that I've worked in, including this one of the most important things that needs to be taught these days is critical thinking. And we do that. And I'm proud of that because I see it in the students when I see and talk with them. And I see it here, and I see it every time we have our board members here, which is why I'm so happy to have you guys here today. And they have a lot to say. And again, I've heard it from many other people, but as I get older, I really think the hope is in the next generation. And that's what we keep hearing sometimes. I see a lot of fault in my own generation and a lot of you, and for the intransigence that we have. We all have very strong opinions. But I think sometimes you have to delve deeper and just look critically at things. And even watching this meeting, you can see where there's intransigence and there's facts and it's muddled all the way through and everything in between. The one thing I am going to say about school and education, and I think that I'm proud of in this district and every other district that I've worked in and schools that I work at, is that we try to teach tolerance and respect, kindness. These are all things that I know happen in our elementary schools, our middle schools, and our high schools. And I'm very proud of that. And I hope that maybe some of our students can teach some of everybody else just a little bit more about that tolerance. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody? I'm not taking any more comments. Is there any more governing board comments? Terry?
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Thank you, President Andrea Zuniga. I wanted to mention that I want to lift up our students. District-wide, we have a lot of students in the community volunteering. And I wanted to just mention a couple of the recent areas that I've seen that at. It was the Mills students at the funeral for Mr. Matsu, who was the amazing basketball coach at Mills, who unfortunately passed away. The Mills students, several groups of Mills students were represented by bringing gifts to the altar for the family, and it just it warms my heart to see how many students were there. I think the entire basketball team was there, and there were other students there that brought, as part of the ceremony, brought gifts to the family. And then a few days ago, I attended the city council reorg where they swore in the new mayor and the new vice mayor. And then they also celebrated Millbrae being 75 years old, their anniversary. The Mills Jazz Band did an amazing performance. They played probably half a dozen songs. It was amazing. And we had Mills Leos from the Leos Club with one or two Burlingame High School Leos there too. They served for, I want to say, 2.5 to 3 hours. It's just, it warms my heart to see our students within our district serving our community. And those are just two of the recent groups that I've seen. I always see students from all of our school sites, but I just wanted to give a shout out to our students because I see you everywhere volunteering, and it's really warms my heart. And thank you for doing that. Thank you. That's my comments.
Are any board comments? Trustee Griffin?
Okay. I want to thank all the speakers. And it's not, our job is to listen and to pay attention, and I take the comments to heart. Our job is to provide a safe environment for all, and for all to learn. We value critical thinking. We hope that we are not creating, just are allowing people to use propaganda in our classrooms. That is not per the ed code. It's not per district policy. One thing that we gotta come up with is just more tolerance and more respect. We have to listen to other people, share, listen to their views. We should listen. We should be able to express our views in a respectful manner. And I hope that we get there, because the world's not going to get any better if we're not even going to listen to each other. So, but I do thank you for coming, and hopefully you'll listen to the rest of the agenda. So, one other thing, and this is there was an educational, what is it, the CSBA conference, and which actually dealt with a number of really important issues, regarding education, just pure education, curriculum, achievement, learning in the future, finance, budget. And I think we all attended, and I think we all got something out of it, and I look forward to doing that again. So anyway.
Thank you. Trustee Jacobson?
Thanks. I also want to thank all the speakers who came out tonight to give public comment. Trustee Griffin said last week that our last meeting that our job is to listen, and I take that very seriously. So thank you. I wanted to report that last week I attended part of the Golding trial at Hillsdale. For those of you who don't know what that is, the trial starts with William Golding, accused of libeling human nature in Lord of the Flies. Students are tasked with portraying all of the characters you see in a courtroom drama. Expert witnesses testify on the side of nature or nurture. While there, I saw such figures as Angela Davis, Karl Marx, and Yeonmi Park. Even Batman made an appearance. Sometimes Golding is acquitted and freed. Sometimes he's convicted. For more than 30 years, his fate has been in the hands of Hillsdale students. This is the second time one of my daughters has done this project, and I've been so impressed with the teachers who created it 30 years ago and those who continue it year after year. This is a prime example of how teachers can engage students in a controversial topic in a way that is approachable, inclusive, and invites respectful civil discourse. Students practice many skills, including research, critically analyzing facts, forming arguments and counter-arguments, and arriving at their own positions. We've heard a lot tonight about critical thinking, and I think that's something that we all value, and that's different. Critical thinking is not the same thing as critical consciousness. Since the last board meeting, I've thought a lot about the comments that we heard. I even went back and listened to many of them again on the video. One of the themes I heard is that we want our students to learn facts and to think critically about those facts. The Golding trial is an excellent example of how we do that, and we do it well. We want them to have a robust historical knowledge base to be able to interpret current events responsibly. I understand some teachers feel they need additional support in knowing how to properly execute their duties in the classroom as representatives of the district carrying out the board-approved curriculum. Free speech by teachers in K-12 classrooms has constraints that must be understood and respected. I've had conversations with Superintendent Booker about this, and am assured he is committed to supporting our teachers in their charge and providing additional guidance and professional development where it is needed. I know that our educators take care in teaching students how to interpret and judge sources of information. I also heard some disagreement last meeting, and perhaps tonight, about what anti-Semitism is and what it isn't. It seems we need further education on this topic so that all students may express themselves according to their rights of free speech without crossing the line into hate speech. Some speakers tonight have expressed concern over our curriculum, specifically ethnic studies. And this begs the question about whether the tenets in our classrooms are leading to greater understanding and peace, or limiting it. I've heard the words Zionist, settler colonialism, decolonization, and liberation used more times in the last couple of months than I can count, and they're used deliberately to win sympathy for one oppressed group and demonize another. The people using these words and those hearing them need to understand that they lead to violence. This rhetoric is literally dangerous. We have a responsibility to our young people to teach them to reject the notion that committing acts of terrorism is a form of liberation that leads to justice. It is not. When tried historically, it has not led to democracy or peace, and it never will. We have a responsibility to teach them that racism of any kind is wrong. We have a responsibility to teach them moral clarity and the right ways to bring about justice. And we have a responsibility to teach them how to explore all of this within a framework of intellectual diversity, open inquiry, and civil discourse. We must examine ourselves and if we are truly teaching love and morality to our students, or if we are causing them to praise violence and harm to the innocent. Coming from a place of love for our students, we should examine the values we are transmitting to the next generation and their consequences for peace or for violence. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, so I am going to give my comments. I was asked to explain something very personal to me, which I wish would have been done privately. I did speak to you privately, and I really wish you would have respected that. And if you wanted to know, you could have called me. So I will explain why I do not say the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance is a pledge that I don't think anybody really, well, I don't know, maybe you do, but I don't think a lot of people really understand exactly what they're saying. Are we just regurgitating something, or are we truly understanding what we're saying? The reason why I don't say the Pledge of Allegiance is because of my lived experience. I am a brown woman in this country with a disability. I am not allowed to get married because if I get married, I lose my benefits. And I will lose my housing, I will lose my Social Security income, and I will lose everything that I worked for. That is not fair. That is not equality. I also stand in solidarity with my Native American brothers and sisters who, through colonization, indoctrination, and racism, were completely annihilated from this country. Land removed. They were given pieces of garbage land that you can't even grow anything on. That is not justice and liberty. My tax money goes to things that I don't agree with. That is not justice and liberty. At the end of the Pledge of Allegiance, it says with liberty and justice for all. But I don't believe that that's true. And it wasn't written for me either. The flag was not created for me. It was created at a time when there were slaves by a person who owned slaves. That is not liberty and justice for all. So those are my reasons why, my personal reasons. And I am critically dissecting this pledge that I've been forced to say since I was a child, with the understanding of what I'm really saying. So there are so many more things I can say, but that is my reasoning why. And my oath was to, yes, protect the Constitution, because I do believe in people's rights. I am part of the ACLU, and I believe in civil liberties. But I don't believe in repeating something that wasn't written for everybody. I'm going to read my land acknowledgement now because this is what I believe in. And this was written by students at Cappuccino High School. The Cappuccino High School community acknowledges that our campus lies on the ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone. The Ramaytush are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula, whose land was stolen from them and whose native language was lost because of Spanish colonization. As settlers on the stolen land of the peninsula, we should be, alongside with the Ramaytush people, the Ramaytush Ohlone, for taking care of the land we use now for education and activities. Our district, our school, business office, this San Mateo High School is on shell mounds. We have land all over this area that was the land of people who inhabited this before us. We at Cappuccino thank the first people, the Ramaytush Ohlone, for taking care of the land we use now for education and activities. Our responsibility of caring for the earth is unique and personal to each of us, but should be rooted in allyship with the Ramaytush Ohlone so we can work together to protect and preserve the land for future generations. I wanted to also give give some praise for our wonderful people here in our district. Like Trustee Griffin said, we all attended the CSBA, the California School Board Association conference a couple of weeks ago. The workshops that I attended were great, but what was really frustrating was that our district already does a lot of the things that they were talking about, which it just warmed my heart because it means that we are in a great place and that we are thinking progressively and for the future of our youth. I attended on Monday the San Mateo County School Board Association mixer, which Trustee Land is the president of.
Yep.
And we were able to oversee or to go and look at the community school that they have, Redwood High School. They have a garden and a culinary program and things like that, very similar to what we have here here in our own district at Peninsula. But what was really neat was how we don't look at Peninsula as the school for the quote unquote bad kids or a school that's less than all of the other schools. When we talk about equity, we talk about how everybody is valuable and how Superintendent Booker talks about everybody graduating. Everybody has the right to graduate and everybody is valued in this district. And so that is what I took from that meeting. Last week, I also attended the Special Education Advisory Committee. I've always wanted to attend that meeting, and luckily, I was able to attend it this time because things didn't conflict. But this was the first time I saw so many people together in one room for a common goal, which was our students with disabilities. And people with disabilities are a group that are usually an afterthought. And so that was really neat that I was able to see that. So we need more parents to come and support their students, to feel safe enough, to feel valued enough that our district really does care for students with disabilities. We also would like to see students and their families from our partnering districts because we're all one community. Gosh, there's so many things that have been happening around the community. I really want to lift up the Cappuccino High School. There were 3 families that were affected by a fire who lost everything recently. And the English learner folks out at Cappuccino, the parent engagement coordinators had, along with other parents, had collected money, collected food and clothing for our families that needed help. That is community. And that was beautiful. The families now have somewhere to go and they're able to be taken care of. Again, that's community. There's another teacher, Karen Field, who always puts together a nice holiday drive for our English learner students that don't have as much as everybody else does. That is community. Our folks out at Hillsdale that are in charge of the community garden, the peace pantry, and all that, that is community. Those are all the things that I'm proud of that we do here. I was able to attend the Mills High School. The Black Student Union had a movie night, and it's neat because our students are really trying to put forward just making sure that everybody's heard, making sure that everybody is seen. And when our students come together for films that elevate and that celebrate communities, it's beautiful. So thank you, Mills Black Student Union, for being so hospitable that night. The DLAC meetings are always greatly attended. there's so many things I can continue to say. I can go on, but I really want to echo what Trustee Land was saying about thinking critically and being respectful of one another. I want to bring light to all of our youth, all of the young people that are suffering in this world right now, regardless of where you come from. Our young people are the ones who will inherit what we leave. And right now, it doesn't look like we're leaving anything good. So I really want us to think about that. I say to my students over here, you know, it is refreshing to have you here. And I am so grateful for you because you bring in a perspective that we've all maybe lost from getting older and experiencing things that have maybe jaded us a little bit. But thank you for being here and thank you for doing your duty to your community. So that's it. Thank you. All right, we will move on. If anybody ever has anything to ask me, please reach out to me. I don't mind answering questions. Okay. Okay, so now, item M, communications to the Board of Trustees. There were none. No recognition tonight. I would like to receive a motion for the consent agenda. Are there any items that would like to be pulled?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Trustee Land
I'll second the motion.
and a second by Trustee Griffin.
I mean,
Is now when I ask to pull something?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we remove item X1 from the agenda. This was based on a private interaction between a trustee and a employee, and I think that all avenues to resolve it privately should be exhausted before we bring it to the public.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, let's see, we'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Land, how do you vote?
No.
Trustee Griffin, how do you vote?
no, I do not have any knowledge of what any of this is about.
Trustee Chavez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote no, so we will not pull that item. Thank you. Okay, so we will go on to consent agenda. So we had a motion by Trustee Land, a second by Trustee Griffin. Trustee Land, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Griffin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
I have a question. The way we took the consent agenda and then we interjected that other motion in there, is that legal?
Probably not.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So during our recess, I conferred with County Council around an agenda adjustment, removal of an agenda item. We're not permitted to add an agenda item in the middle of a meeting because it wasn't on the agenda when you have to have 72 hours and all those kinds of things. But at any point in the meeting, a board member can file a motion, make a motion to adjust an agenda, move something up, down, or in this case, remove an agenda item. It probably shouldn't have been done in the middle
Right,
of
in
a
the middle of
consent,
the vote, yeah.
but that's not illegal. What I would recommend moving forward and working with President Zuniga and Vice President Griffin is adding to our agenda moving forward a topic at the beginning of the meeting called either approving the agenda or what I've seen in other districts called agenda adjustments we can call it either one, but that would be an official time to make that motion so that we don't have confusion in the future. But to answer your question, Trustee Griffin, it wasn't illegal. It was just a little cumbersome, but not illegal.
Well, that's very reassuring.
You know what?
Thank you.
I want to take a moment to that because, again, I'm glad that County Council affirmed that because that's what I was assuming we would have somewhere in the agenda, approval of the agenda, which we do not have. So it's good to see that that's going to be adjusted for the future.
And I, through the chair, I wanted to mention that I was watching a video from maybe 2021 for this school board SMUHSD, and we had that on the agenda at the top, just like some school districts do. So I think that's a good point.
And you know what I forgot? I forgot to ask our students to vote. This whole night I've been thinking about it and I didn't do it. We needed to ask you all for your vote as well.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
What were they voting on?
What's that? Oh, okay. Okay, moving on to the next item, which is the regular reports. So the first one is the report of our superintendent.
Thank you very much. I'll keep my comments brief. I know we have a lot to cover this evening and a lot of important material. Just two quick big thanks, and President Andrade Zuniga already mentioned this, but I want to thank Holly Wade and her entire special education team for the Special Education Advisory Committee. They invited me to speak at that meeting, and I was just so impressed with, one, the turnout, and how energetic, inclusive, welcoming that environment was. And I want to continue to encourage families in our SMUHSD community and our partner districts to participate. I think it's really, really important. Secondly, I'd like to thank our special education team, specifically our Bay University program leads for the holiday sale they hosted here in the district office last week. I was so encouraged. I was kind of having a bad day that day, and to come down here and see their smiling faces and all the goods they made by hand and were selling, and the coffee cart and all those things. So big thanks to Julia Payne and her team. It literally brightened my entire day. I want to wish everyone a really fruitful, restful, comforting winter break as we approach it. We don't have another board meeting between now and then. I hope everyone can recharge. And I'm very eager for the start of the second semester. I think we have a lot of fantastic and important work to do, a lot to tackle in a very short amount of time. And I really look forward to that work. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the student board report. Thank you.
All right. I will be providing a little update on what's going on at Mill College. So, of course, everyone across the district is cruising into finals, and Middle College is not different. We're definitely feeling the strain too, because we have college and high school finals within the same time span. So for some of us, it is very, very stressful. Or if you're like me, it's pretty easy. It's fine. I'll be A-okay. And we are acknowledging that some people are crashing and burning, but, those people are not alone. Everyone is in it together, and we have the resources to at least help those people, console those people if they are having a particularly troubling time, especially right now. And I was thinking about this earlier, and a few of my friends mentioned it. There was a specific concern about middle college students is that sometimes we have a lot of extracurriculars back at our home sites, and we have to be there sometimes in the middle of the school day or right after school ends, and sometimes the hall monitors and the some members of administration are coming up to us assuming that we are visitors, even though we aren't, and interacting with us as if we were visitors. And it happened to me one time, and I was a little concerned with the lack of decorum that I received because I am a student of Mills. That's like, that's a fact. And I did not appreciate the way that I was spoken to. And I know there are a couple other students that have similar experiences, and I just want to bring that up.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm also a student at Mills. So we also have finals, and I know district-wide, a lot of our other sites have been doing stress busters, and our leadership teams have been hosting lunch activities, and our wellness teams have opened up our wellness rooms and are really reaching out, making sure students are handling everything all right. And just yesterday, our student board had our final meeting of the year. We had a fun winter celebration, and a lot of people brought food, and it was really fun just reflecting on this semester and talking about our goals for next semester. We were also honored to welcome our new member to our board, Shira, for Aragon, I believe. And so we're excited to work with them and expand our team for the next year. And part of the goals that we were talking about is we wanted to implement some like intra-school activities or just like hands-on events where students from different sites can interact and kind of, we were talking about like sports rivalries and stuff and how that can, instead of implementing rivalries, we could create positivity and bring schools together. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Maybe you all can come and do some stress busters here. It looks like we need it, huh? Okay, thank you very much for your report. Item 3 is report of the District Teachers Association representative.
Good evening, President Andrade Zuniga, and members of the board and district cabinet. Yes, I would just reiterate with what many speakers have said, that we're, nearing the end of the semester, and that warm welcome of the winter break and a rejuvenation for to get ready for spring semester. So a lot of folks are feeling really good about where we're at right now, and there's a lot to celebrate. In my capacity, I run a lot of meetings, and I have a really supportive staff and supportive group of representatives. And I'll just take a point of order here that there was a lot said tonight, and one of the things I thought I was going to be struck by some of the things that were said by some of the speakers, but what I was, I think, most struck by is that I'm really grateful for the group of representatives and fellow leaders in my association, that if there is a concern with something that I have said or a position that I've taken, that I am treated with respect and addressed in a personal and professional way. And what I saw tonight was perhaps not as professional as I would hope this board would act. So I'm a bit disappointed in that. However, I appreciate the comments that were made about that situation, and going forward, I hope that we can all focus on the goals and the perspective of who we are as a district and what our mission is, and trust that everyone is working towards the same goal, and that we can collaborate respectful. The other issue that I think was interesting tonight was, the continued concern over teachers in the classroom and curriculum in the classroom. I know everyone is experiencing the same world events that are affecting families, students, teachers, and community members. But to suggest that the curriculum that is being taught in our classrooms, or that the teachers' actions in our classrooms are somehow subversive or counterproductive to providing a safe place or safe space for students is, again, simply inconceivable to me. I hope that the folks who suggest that teachers in social science curriculum, ethnic studies, or any subject for that matter, who might support their students or share a safe space for their students should not be considered subversive or counterproductive to the district's mission. We're all here for the betterment of the community and for the education of our students. And to suggest that teachers are part of the problem is simply, well, quite frankly, it's disgusting and offensive. But I don't want to end on that note. So I want to wish you all happy holidays and hope to see you refreshed in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 4, report from the CSCA chapter 519, excuse me, rep. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I noticed that you had switched seats and I was glad that I sat through part of the meeting in my office to go, oh, President, oh, that's because I get it. Very nice. And congratulations to you all. I don't know if this really means that you change your role or Greg, okay. I don't know if he can help himself, maybe. Got it. Okay. Okay. And not my role either to do that. But good evening, everyone. I want to let you know that the CSCA chapter 519 had our final holiday gathering last night where we had raffle tickets and good food and good cheer. And it was just so nice to see everyone meeting and hanging out together, because that's really the only place I get to meet people who aren't in my maintenance and operations and facilities use group. They're IAs. I know a lot of transportation folks already, but it was everyone there sitting together, enjoying some yummy food at Celia's, which is never disappointing. But one thing that was nice is that, we don't always agree on stuff. And I like that we respect each other's opinion. I don't respect you if you think you have to have my opinion to be respected. Have your own opinion because you think for yourself and I think for myself. And we don't have to agree, but be respectful of each other and communicate and don't get nasty and go behind people's backs. That's how I roll. And that's why it's been easy for me when I meet with Mr. Booker or Mr. Hawkins. We have great conversations once a month about how you're feeling, how's it going? Who have I offended this month? It could be anything because, things happen. So what are you going to do? But we had our election yesterday. The president position and the secretary position came up again. And I didn't have anyone running against me. So you've got me for another 2 years and Andrea Hadley for another 2 years, which would be great. As long as I'm kicking, I'm going to keep coming forward so I can help people do what they do better in the district, working together, communicating with each other, and just being kind. I mean, it just down to the basics. Everyone has their challenges, and it's just the way it is. I liked what I heard Vice President Griffin say earlier. And maybe if I wasn't 64 and 11 months, I could remember what it was, but I really, really liked it. I'll remember as soon as I sit down, I'm sure. But what we have going on are some situations with reclass challenges, and we're openly communicating about equity versus equality. And that's sort of a pain for where I'm pushing it. And I'm going to continue because I want people to understand that being equal isn't necessary, equitable, and we have to be fair, which is the goal. We also had our drive for our $25 Target gift cards, and we caught collected over $100 of Target gift cards, which was matched by CSCA funds. And do you know our biggest contributors? Peninsula High School. Yes. So I would like to hope that the other
Interesting.
schools might feel a little competition. You know, maybe even this building, transportation. But for right now, it's sort of, I don't know if you watch John, well, I won't go there. It's a landslide, I would say, is what they won by. And it's great. And I love that the cards are put out through the hugs, which you can't see this at all. Maybe you can. We got a picture with Don Scatana today when we gave him the gift cards, and he sent it out to each school representative, and they have the students that have been identified as unhoused or have certain challenges this semester, this year, or whatever, to help them. And it really puts a smile on their face, and it makes us feel good because, you know, that's our job. We're creating a nice work-life balance with folks. I want you to be happy when you come to work. I want you to work hard so we can all respect what we do and make it better for the students, teachers, all of us. So thank you very much. Have a great holiday, and I'll see you next year.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the San Mateo Adult School Teachers Association. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to come in. So my name is Carlotta Zuniga and I work with the San Mateo Adult School. And I'm just going to go a little bit some updates that we're working on here. So right now, currently, San Mateo Adult School Career Education Partnership with our consortium Excel for San Mateo County has recently completed, and we have submitted the necessary documents for the Governor's Care Economy Workforce Program budget for the year 2022-2023 grant funds, which is a one-time $130 appropriation for Prop 98 funds. It also supports a 3-year developed program to healthcare and vocational pathways for ELLs through the adult ed program. If it's accepted, our consortia stands to receive a little over $600,000, which is to be dispersed amongst the following healthcare related programs: emergency medical technicians, clinical medical assistant program that we work collaboratively with South San Francisco Adult, nursing assistant, pharmacy technicians, which we offer here at the San Mateo Adult School, phlebotomy technicians, which we also offer here at the San Mateo Adult School, social and human services assistants, and dental assistant program, which we work collaboratively with the College of San Mateo. So the programs must provide a description supported with regional, state, national data for the healthcare occupational program. Must include an accelerated learning model that will be adopted to accelerate student completion rates. Learning models may include dual co-enrollment, IET, work-based learning, pre-apprenticeship and externships, career pathways with bridge programs. Out of 71 regional consortia, Excel, which is our consortia, was one of 51 invited to apply for this opportunity. San Mateo Adult School was a huge factor for this opportunity. So far, we've had 3 students pass our Microsoft Specialist Exam in Excel for 2019, and 2 students passed the Microsoft Specialist Exam of Word for 2019. Our new CE classes that we're going to be offering this spring and summer are Patient Care Fundamentals, a new program, a new class, Entrepreneurship Course, How to Start a Business, Microsoft PowerPoint 2019 certification. A little update on our high school diploma and GED. As you know, we have a goal to increase our enrollment numbers within our high school diploma and GED. I'm very proud to say that so far for this past 2 weeks, we've had 31 students register for our December orientations. Out of the 31 students, well, maybe a little bit more because some of them came tonight, 18 students so far have come in and taken their placement test to start classes in the spring. We will be offering 3 more orientations this week, as well as we will offer some more orientations coming in January. And that is all for the adult school. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity and happy holidays, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item Q, special reports and appearances. Please, Dr. Kimke.
All right, without further ado, this presentation was postponed from our November meeting. I'm really excited to introduce Joanna Feit, who's our new manager of multilingual learners. And she's going to provide a presentation with lots of important information around how our students are doing, as well as some of the changes to the program. You can go to the next slide. And one of the things I want to mention is that her position is now a full-time position overseeing the work for our multilingual learners. So we're really excited to have her here tonight and her first opportunity to present to the board. So really, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to her.
Thank you, Julia. Good evening, President Zuniga, board members, students, and cabinet members. I'm excited that I'm here tonight and able to present about some of the changes that we've had and updates on our multilingual learner programs. Did want to start with a little background about me since it's my first time presenting to everyone. And I also think it'll highlight a little bit about my passion and drive in this work. So I was born and raised in Brazil, and my family moved to the United States when I was in the middle of ninth grade. So I'm an English learner, and well, my second language is English, and I've also been through the experience of transitioning at the age of 16 to a new country, and that is not a fun experience. And it was two teachers in my high school in the United States that really impacted my journey. One was my English teacher, who actually not only taught me English, but also made a point of really integrating community building and wellness into the curriculum every day. And so that really made me feel more a part of the community in the school. And then my other teacher was my science teacher, and I became a science teacher. He made me fall in love with science, and that's where my journey began. So I started teaching 20 years ago at Hillsdale High School. I was a biology teacher, one of the founding members of the smaller learning communities. And after leaving Hillsdale, I've been in various positions that all were around supporting multilingual learners and their access to content and being ready for post-secondary success. So that tells you a little bit about why I'm here, and really happy to be in this position and being able to support this work going forward. So let's get into our programming. So today I'm going to be doing an overview of the initiative that started last year in terms of the Instructional Leadership Initiative, and really focusing on phase 2, which is the multilingual learners. And again, with our focus that all students will graduate and increasing services for our multilingual learners. So currently, we have our multilingual learners fall into 4 categories that are highlighted here. Our first category are the students who are in ELD 1, 2, and 3, and their criteria are that they have scored an overall of 1 through 3 on the LPAC. The number of years that they've been in the US does not impact that currently, and students take ELD and all content courses and EL content courses sheltered with their peers who are learning English. The next group are students, multilingual learners that are in the mainstream. These are students that have overall 3 or 4 in the LPAC. And again, they have not met the reclassification criteria yet. The years in the US has not impacted that placement, and the students take ELD, but then the rest of their classes are in the mainstream content classes. Then we have our long-term multilingual learners, and they can have any LPAC score. They have been in the US for 6 or more years, and they take designated ELD along with their content courses that are in the mainstream. And then our last category are our multilingual learners that have reclassified and met the 4 criteria for reclassification. And these students take all the same courses as general ed students, and we monitor them for 4 years after they have exited our multilingual programs. So our current data shows here, this is showing you the enrollment trends. So you can see that we have really increased our enrollment in multilingual learners over the years. And the increase is particular for our recently immigrant students. So for example, in 17-18, I'm going to go to the next slide to show this. In 17-18, you can see here's our enrollment, our current enrollment by school and by level for our multilingual learners. And if you look at the column on ELD 1, this year we have 214 just in that category. In 17-18, we had 87 students in that category. So you can see that that has been one of our highest increases in students. When we look at our graduation rate, we see that our graduation rate for all of us, our students, is 92%. Our multilingual learners are at 64.7%. So that's showing us that we really do still have a lot of work to improve the success of our multilingual learners. The English proficiency, progress in English proficiency, is a measure that the state has. And what it does is it compares the students' growth from their LPAC 1 year, which is the exam they take for their English proficiency, and it compares it to the following year to see if they've made any progress. And also here, you can see that we're at 53.5%. And although this data in particular is a little skewed because since it's comparing 1 year to the next, and it was during the pandemic, we had many students who did not take the LPAC for the year that this was calculated. But you'll also hear later in some of the growth measures we are gonna look at for progress, that this is one of the things that we will be adding in. So I want to talk about some of the changes that are coming up, and a lot of these changes, if not all of them, do align with the anti-racist work that we have been doing in the district as well. So what you can see here is what our new program placement criteria are going to be. So we're going to have 2 main programs. One is going to be called the Newcomer Program, which is still at the same 3 sites and Bridge, that we will be serving our students who have been in the U.S. for 3 years or less. And in that program, they will continue to take designated ELD, and then they'll also be in the sheltered classes with other multilingual learners. Our standard program then becomes where the students after 3 years go into. So students who have been in the U.S. 4 to 5 years and 6+, and in that program, students will be taking designated ELD, but then the rest of their classes will be in the mainstream with their peers. We're doing this in phases because it's a pretty big shift for our sites. And in spring, we identified 75 students who have been in the U.S. for more than 3 years and should not be in the Newcomer Program. So we are in the process of moving them into the mainstream in January. It has been a very detailed process involving parents and students and making sure they're understanding what is happening, why it's happening, and giving them some options and choices for where they would go and when they would move. And then our second phase will be in the fall, when the full guidelines are in place and students will be offered a placement based on their placement criteria. So they may be going to either a Newcomer Program if they have been in the U.S. less than 3 years, and outside of that, they would be going to their resident school, which they have not been going to in the past. So along with all these changes, we have been providing some professional learning opportunities. We started this week. We had 2 sessions this week already, one with Universal Design for Learning that we did with our San Mateo County office. And then we also started a refresher on constructing meaning, which is around scaffolding strategies. And both of those are going to be for 3 days. Following in the January and February after the teachers get their new students so they can problem solve based on what they're seeing in terms of the needs of their students. And then we're also doing strands with our administrators so that they will be able to focus on how to support teachers with implementation of the new guidelines. So I wanted to review some of the goals that were previously made for these changes, and then some new goals that will also implement. So in the first goal, we're talking about increasing programs for our multilingual learners due to the increase in numbers of students that we are serving. And what so far for this fall, the schools are definitely focusing on reclassification, hoping that we're getting more reclassification than we have in the past for the fall. And that's really been a primary focus for our ML specialists at the sites working with the teachers. In spring, as I mentioned before, we're going to be moving 75 students into the mainstream courses. And then in the fall of 2024, it's the full implementation. The full implementation in the fall will also be addressing a lot of the classes that maybe students have been missing or that they have not had access to. I would say in addition, this semester, we've added a ML club coordinator to each of the 4 sites to build community for our ML learners, and also based on the DLAC recommendation from last year. In addition to that, we are also working on we will be hiring another last year, or we had one social worker that focuses on our multilingual learner students and families. And due to the increased need, we will be adding another social worker whose focus will be for multilingual learners. And then the other goal was around summer, and we do intend to continue the summer program specifically for our multilingual learners in summer 2024. So some of our newer goals, these are all aligned with our LCAP, and again with the work that we've been doing throughout the years in terms of anti-racist and access and wanting all students to graduate. So increasing access to ML students, that is one thing that is really going to be a big change, and hopefully will be a good access for our students to be able to be close to their neighborhood and access their community. So students will be accessing the resident schools, which they haven't necessarily been accessing in the past. And then they'll also get access to core content classes and graduation requirements sooner than they have up until now. And the way we will be monitoring for this progress is, one, for example, I've already trained, we've done a training with Student Services and Dawn around how to welcome our families and review the new placement, because they have been working under the previous guidelines where students were only allowed to go to one of the 3 schools or bridge if they qualified for that program. So that's already been done. Families that are already coming in are receiving the correct information. And then the professional learning opportunities that I shared prior with teachers and with our instructional aides, we'll have some of that, and then with our administrators as well. The other goals that have been added, one is around increasing the % of students making 1-year growth in the LPAC. That goes back to that data point around the English proficiency progress. And that's something that at the state, they measure by cohort for that graduation, or by cohort of multilingual learners. And we're going to take it a step further and actually do this for each student, so we can identify which students aren't making progress, and we can dive in a little deeper as to why that particular student might not be making progress. Our second goal is around increasing the % of multilingual students who have been in our schools to advanced levels. So again, based on our guidelines, students will be progressing based on the guidelines and not necessarily being held back or being prevented from accessing some of the core content that they may have been not able to access prior. And then our measure around that, again, will be looking at class enrollment and course completion and being on track for graduation. And then our third one is around increasing the percentage of ML students who are reclassified each year. So, and one of the things that we've already started doing around that is I've been working directly with the ML specialists around students that I identified that were not on the reclassification list and trying to figure out why they weren't on there and ensuring that all those students can get reclassified in a timely manner. And so I am looking forward to coming back in the spring. We'll have our DLAC report in the spring, and wanted to open it up for questions at this point.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, through the chair. Excellent presentation. I want to echo what President Andrade Zuniga said. Excellent. I have a question about, I guess it's a comment, the graduation rate for all students, as you show on the slide, 92%. And for multilingual learners, it's 64.7%. That matches and that's consistent with other presentations that we received. So I was going to ask what we can do to support helping our goal of everyone graduating, but then the following slides already answer my question. It looks like a lot is going to be in place and it's really exciting. I look forward to seeing the outcome of the what occurs after the change is made. So thank you to you and your entire staff for digging into. I mean, I know our goal is every student has the opportunity to graduate, and putting that support level there. It's what we talk about when we talk about equity, you know, giving those students who need extra support, the additional support that they need. So thank you for your presentation.
I actually forgot to mention one other thing. We're starting next week, actually, which is an independent study cohort, especially for our multilingual students. And we're going to be using a different platform that's more accessible for our multilingual learners. So really excited to start that as well.
That's great. Anybody else? Trustee Griffin?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick, given the lateness of the hour. Just a clarity or clarification. Are those state standards that are the ghosted shadows, are those real? And are we that far behind the state
For the standards.
for English learners?
So there are.
I mean, you know, the symbol, you know, the things I'm talking about over the little boxes to the right with us and with the state.
Yeah. So yes, it's accurate. We all have, there's California state standards for ELD standards and for the core curriculum. And, but yes, those are all followed accurately.
Yeah, it looks like one of the keys, and this is really is the time differential. And I'm trying to understand just, you know, sort of at a high level, because people learn at different levels. And we have people that look like they're kind of stuck. They're new people. They're people that are stuck and can't get any way. And now we're just going to say, okay, time's up, or you're in this group based on time, but they're not all going to be at the same level, or they're not going to be close to competent wherever they are. Doesn't that present a big challenge, or is that how you're trying to cure the challenges we face?
It's a great question. It's actually a challenge that the entire country is facing. It used to be actually even just a month ago, the California standards were that you had to, students had to exit the newcomer program in 1 year. The federal government changed it to 3. California will be following. They haven't yet, but they have allowed us to follow it already. So the guidelines have already actually increased. But it's something that, as I've joined quite a few community of practices around this lately, it's something that the entire country and in California are battling with. How do we address the needs, especially of our students who have interrupted education and might be learning in different stages? And that's something that realistically everyone is discussing and trying to figure out what the best way to handle it is.
Thank you. It's a good report.
Any other questions?
I was gonna ask you.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. So you just said that the newcomer program used to be limited to 1 year. That's not long enough. So that's great that they increased it. What they increased it to 3 years, you mentioned?
Yes, correct.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Leon?
So I just want to say thank you and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Really nice to have you here. A couple comments and a couple questions. So I really appreciate the shifts that we're making when you talk about the program shifts. I think my first question, well, first I totally want to commend on commend the shifts towards resident schools. Love that. Towards the culturally responsiveness of the program and try to connect with the students in that way. And I really appreciate the dynamic approach of trying to shift rather than keeping stuck and, staying in the same program too long. So I really appreciate all of that and what you presented. One of my concerns is, especially when you talk about multilingual learners, is that scaffolding and taking it away slowly or at the right moment. How can we ensure when they're heading back to the next program or, doing the shifts that you said on one of the slides? How do we ensure support for kids who might be not succeeding with that shift? Is there some sort of support that we have in place?
Yeah, so another great question. So for example, we will be increasing our progress monitoring of students. And by increasing, I mean more like who we look at and how. So really focusing in on the students that may not be successful and ensuring we provide interventions early. And being able, and the other piece too is what we are doing with our teachers now around the professional development. And we do have to have a shift in our tier 1 instruction and our strategies for interventions in tier 1. And these shifts are good for all students. It's not just multilingual learners. So I'm hoping that over time, we'll be able to see some more interventions in the tier 1 instruction, and then some more also interventions that are really systematically aligned with where the student is lacking progress.
You're a mind reader because that's my second comment. I just wanted to commend you on and everyone about the professional development that you're doing, reinforcing the constructing meaning, working on the UDL. These are really programs that I think are at the forefront of tier 1 and helping English learners in the tier 1 and helping everyone. So I think I just want to commend you. I just want to say that I haven't heard constructing meaning in a while at this meeting on the board. I remember when Cappuccino first started initiating the constructing meaning with the UC Berkeley subject matter projects. And I just want to honor that because I was part of that program and Phyllis Goldsmith when she first developed this program. And I love to see that we've adopted it, taken it on and built it and made it our own. And that's historical. So I know you're new, but I'm nodding to the people behind you and around you that have really worked on this. So I'm really proud that that's being reinvigorated for the tier 1. And then the UDL. I think that is just a critical thing right now. That is a great program for learning for our teachers and really a mind shift like you're saying. And I think that's awesome. So thank you so much for the presentation. I think you guys are doing a great job.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I have a question. Actually, I have a few questions. And let's see, let me go down the list. I'll be brief on some of these. So you mentioned that there are some situations where the students are not progressing. Could you give us some examples of why they wouldn't be progressing?
All sorts of examples. We see that a lot in our long-term English learners who have been in the US. Some were born here. And, for each student, it's different, but a lot of times it's a discouragement of not passing the test every time or not having access to scaffolds that help them succeed in the classroom. And then sometimes especially with our newcomer students, what we see is some trauma that they've experienced, or some students who come in and they are illiterate in their home language. So they don't know how to read or write in any language. So we really have to catch up really quickly. And yes, it's true, like the time constraint, right? How do we do that effectively and efficiently? And it's hard when you have a 17-year-old who doesn't read or write in front of you. How do you teach that student? How do you grade that student? How do you get them to the next level? So it really depends on each student. And that's part of the reason why we are looking at another social worker to focus on these particular groups of students so that they can support the families and students to hopefully take away some of the other things that they're prioritizing in their life.
Thank you. And I know that with all of the different associations, the school board associations, I know that we've been talking about community schools for a very long time. And so I think in reading all of this, I think that's where our community schools will be very important. Because when we have services and supports within the same district, within the same educational setting, it's more likely for students to feel supported and do better. And you're right. A lot of the students have a lot of trauma, have a lot of needs like working to pay for their room and board. They're sometimes unaccompanied minors. So they have a lot more stressors than the average teenager would, right? Also, let's see, with the parents. So I know that you've been presenting this information. So what kind of feedback have you received from the families? What questions have they had? And even, I guess, coming up to this, these changes, what has been the reaction from the community?
For the most part, parents have really been happy to hear this. There's been some questions about like program differences if they're changing schools, going back to their resident school. But for the most part, families that we've called, especially those 77 that we really paid attention to and had one-on-one conversations, they're all really excited to see that their students are going to be placed in all English classes with their English peers. So for the most part, it has been well received. I've heard that at the ELACs, there have been some questions and comments around it, but again, nothing negative necessarily from the families, more just curiosities around why it was this way and why it's shifting, and then also around supports for students when they move to the mainstream.
Thank you. And with our partner districts, I know that there's some inconsistency in how they address their English learner communities. Now, what kind of collaboration is there, and how are we communicating our standards to the partner districts? And since there is more emphasis in funding at the elementary, middle school level, I guess how is that used, and why are some of the schools coming, or why are some of the students coming from some of the schools very different than others? So yeah, if you could give me some insight on that.
Yeah, so in terms of collaboration with the middle schools, we have our 8th grade transition night with all the feeder schools. And at that time, I made a point of meeting all the people who were over ML programs at their districts. And then I've been meeting with them individually. So for example, I've met a couple times with San Mateo Foster City. They're also going through a lot of the same changes we will be going through, and same with San Bruno Park. And so they're looking at the same types of changes that we are. We were able to share each other's changes, and then I'm actually going to one of their next ELD committees to talk about what, our hopes are for when students are transitioning. And a lot of times I see our feeders in the community practices that I've joined. So there's a lot of collaboration there. Also starting to talk to some neighboring school districts around visits for our teachers to see where programs might be working effectively. So definitely looking at some more opportunities for collaboration, but I've definitely started to make some connections with my counterparts at our feeder districts to try to work on this articulation a little more.
Excellent. Yes.
So,
Like
so,
with you, right?
so knowing one of those partner districts
Uh-huh.
and a middle school, right? We are doing UDL as well, so we should talk about that a little bit more. But I would like to make a suggestion, and I'm hoping you might take me very seriously on this. This idea of constructing meaning would be great at the lower levels. In fact, I think San Bruno Park, Millbrae, Burlingame would really benefit this if we could figure out a way to collaborate and learn how you guys have really executed over many years constructing meaning. I think it will have a lot of value for our middle school multilingual learners, and would appreciate that somehow. I don't know how we can make that happen, but trying to add to what you were just talking about, because I really would love that partnership.
Great, thank you. I have one last question about the teachers. How often are teachers able to collaborate with each other when it comes to like best practices and maybe stuff they're struggling with? Is there a point person they go to for support, for advice? And then how are they going to be supported once there are more students in their classroom? What is that going to look like?
So for collaboration, this year, the ELD teachers are starting a new curriculum, so they have been meeting for their training and then also have opportunities to collaborate. We have an ELD council where some of our teachers come to, and then there's an ELD coordinator who is the point person that teachers can go to for resources, for curriculum, if they have questions. So there's those opportunities. And then at each school site also has different internal collaboration processes for their teachers. Sometimes they're by department, and sometimes it's cross collaboration. And in terms of the changes in the classroom, all the numbers of students will remain within contractual limits for the teachers, and there have been shifts to ensure that there are equitable ratio of students in classrooms. And we do have instructional aides for our multilingual learner program, so they will also be helping out in the classrooms where these students might be going to new classrooms.
Great. Any other questions? Do you all have questions? No? Okay. All right.
Thank you again.
So yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Let me see. Moving on. All right. Moving on to construction. Go ahead, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you so much. Carducci Associates is one of the district's board-approved landscape architects in our pool. They've worked on several of our projects, including the beautiful sports complexes at Mills and Cappuccino that were finished last year. Their contracts are based on a fixed percentage of the final construction costs. And so the item in front of the board today is an adjustment to their fee to reflect the actual board-approved construction costs for the projects noted. These costs are included in the board-approved budgets for each project. With that, I'm happy to ask or answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Mr. Lee?
Mine is just, I just want to confirm the amount of change.
Correct.
What is it? What is the amount?
It's 1.7 million, but hold on, let me pull the exact amount. The largest portion of that is related to the Mills and Cappuccino projects, but let me pull it up real quick.
1734.
There you go.
624.
I'm just
Thank
verifying.
you.
Thank you.
Vice President
I think-
Griffin.
Yeah, Vice President Griffin probably has something to say.
No, I'm going to make a motion.
Great. Motion by trustee Griffin.
Second,
Second by trustee Land. Trustee Land, how do you vote?
we're just,
Yes.
yes.
Trustee Griffin?
Yes.
Trustee Jacobs?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez?
Yes.
Student board reps?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
And your vote.
And my vote, excuse me, thank you. And I vote yes. So motion carries. Okay, going on to Division of Human Resources.
Yes, we have five items under the human resource, or 4 items under human resource consent. Are there any questions on those? Or
No questions.
I make a motion to approve the consent, HR consent agenda.
I'll
Thank
second that.
Motion by trustee Land, second by trustee Chavez. Roll call vote. Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Griffin,
Yes.
student board,
Yes.
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion carries. And now your next item.
next item is human personnel actions addendum. We do have a recognition. Deborah Stuckey, math teacher at Hillsdale High School, submitted her retirement effective the end of the day, May 31st. She's been a teacher with the district for 36 years.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve.
Trustee Jacobson moves.
I'll second that.
Trustee Chavez seconds. Roll call vote. Trustee Jacobson,
Aye.
trustee Chavez,
Aye.
trustee Land,
Yes.
trustee Griffin.
Yes.
I vote yes. School board,
Yes.
school rep, sorry. Student reps.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item.
The next item is our condom access program written materials. The district's initiated the board-approved school-based condom availability program this year. The board policy and the program were initially approved by the board on May 18th, 2023. And upon board approval tonight, we will start the program officially on December 18th, 2023. We recommend that you approve the written materials and information related to abstinence, condom use, and protection from sexually transmitted infections and the condom access program.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I'll move adoption. It says the 19th. I'm
Sorry.
not the quibble. It says 12/19, little start date. I think
Sorry.
you just said
Thanks.
12/18. Just so you know, I'm paying
Got it.
attention.
Nice.
And not a day earlier.
Okay.
Well, isn't that close to when's recess? When's
Well, we had to wait for this meeting. 22nd.
okay.
Motion by trustee Griffin. Second.
Second?
Second by trustee Jacobson. Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez,
Yes.
trustee Land,
Yes.
trustee Griffin.
Yes.
And I've been doing this wrong. You all don't vote on these. My vote is yes, and motion carries. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, let's see, next item.
Can I ask a question of clarification?
Yes.
And I just want to understand why student board members, it's an advisory vote. And I think you said they weren't allowed to vote on this.
Right.
I think
don't-
it's good if maybe Superintendent Booker.
A little
Yeah, go ahead.
transparency.
Absolutely. So Ed Code prohibits student board members for voting on personnel issues. So anything
Okay.
under personnel topics. Everything else, consent calendar, construction. all
Okay,
those
no,
kinds
that's
of
fine.
things.
I
Yeah.
just
Yes.
needed to understand.
Thank you.
So, okay. Next item.
The next items are the updated classified and confidential employee salary schedule. The board approved a collective bargaining agreement with the CSEA earlier this year that included stipends for bachelor's degrees and advanced degrees. And we'd like to put that on the salary schedule for both our classified unit and our confidential employees.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by trustee Land, second by trustee Griffin. Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez,
Yes.
trustee Land,
Yes.
trustee Griffin,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion carried.
President Zuniga, can I make a comment about
Yeah,
that one?
for
I
sure.
just want to call that out and really praise the board, CSCA leadership, and others for this particular item. This item last year and into this year is very, very important to me that we are recognizing and showing value to educational growth for all of our employees, not just our DTA members, but CSCA asked me, all of our members. We want educators across the district, and you know, I've said this, when I refer to educators, I mean all of our employees. We want all of our employees to be as educated as possible in working with our students. We find value there, and I'm just appreciative of the board for passing this salary schedule, of the work that Dr. Black and his team, Mr. Hawkins and his team has done in negotiations to get this passed. This personally for me is an equity issue, and it's very, very important to me. So I just want to call it out and say how much I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item.
The next item is a waiver for one of our ed specialists. We don't have very many of these at all. It's the first one that I remember in a long time. But one of our ed specialists, the timeline for the level 1 credential has passed, and she's been unable to complete the needed assessments for level 2. So her credential will expire unless we provide this waiver. So we recommend that you approve this waiver application for our ed specialist.
Thank you.
I'll
Can I
make a
get
motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
So motion by trustee Griffin, second by trustee Chavez. Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land,
Yes.
trustee Griffin,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion carries. Last item.
Last item is an update to our athletic manual. We had 19 changes or revisions to the manual. I'll just quickly state 4 of them. One was including the girls flag football. The other is making sure that excused absences are allowed and that they're fair, unbiased, and they do not result in disparate treatment of students. And then we updated our clearance requirements and updated our student adult driver application form, along with 15 other smaller changes.
I make a motion to approve the athletic director manual.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. So motion by trustee Land, second by trustee Griffin. Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez?
Yes.
Trustee Land?
Yes.
Trustee Griffin?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Going on to Division of Instructional Services. Go ahead, Dr. Gemke.
So we're seeking approval for the pilot of the 3D Advanced Art course. This is going to be piloted at San Mateo High School.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the 3D advanced art course proposal.
Thank you. Second.
I second that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Motion by trustee Land, second by trustee Chavez. Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez?
Yes, this is exciting.
Trustee Land?
Yes.
Trustee Griffin?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Sorry, I've been going super fast and our poor interpreters. I am so sorry.
They're good.
Okay, going on to the second item.
We are seeking approval for the pilot of the Photoshop Fundamentals class, and this also will be at San Mateo High School.
I make a motion to approve the Photoshop fundamentals course.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by trustee Land, second by trustee Chavez. Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez, how do you vote?
Yes, and this is exciting too.
Trustee Land,
Yes.
trustee Griffin,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Division of Business Services, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you so much. The district collects school impact fees or developer fees on all new residential and commercial construction throughout the district. These fees require annual and 5-year reports and resolution that are brought to the board. The annual within 180 days of the end of the fiscal year. One of the items I do want to focus on in the 5-year report is that the developer fee fund is actually supporting $10 million of the cost of the Burlingame High School gym project. So these developer fees really do add up and support the construction and the modernization needs throughout the district. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions.
Questions for Mr. Hawkins? Okay,
I'll move adoption.
Second.
thank you. So motion by trustee Griffin, second by trustee Land. Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez,
Yes.
trustee Land,
Aye.
trustee Griffin,
Aye.
and I vote yes. Motion carries. Second item. Sorry, as soon as you took a sip,
Yeah,
right?
you got me taking a sip of water. Thank you very much. All right, we'll be, if we can bring up the presentation. I know everyone's most excited tonight to hear about the first interim financial report for the
Absolutely.
school district.
Can't wait to see the comic.
Thank
My
you.
favorite.
Well, we'll go with that a little bit later, trustee Land. The first, I want to start with some gratitude to the amazing team. I get to come up and give this presentation, but 99% of the work is done by the business services team. So Valerie, Vanessa, and Christina, thank you so much for all your work on this. I'd also like to thank all of the accounting staff throughout the district and the administrators who work tirelessly on their budgets and are calling me late night and really it's an honor to work with the folks throughout the district. So first interim, we're at first interim right now. Adopted budget was in June, and first interim is through October 31st of each year. First interim is the key budget report for the current year. So when I say that, I mean, this is the biggest change that we're going to likely see during the year from our adopted budget. When we adopted the budget, we were using several assumptions that have now been cleared up. And we have a lot of really strong data. So what has been updated? Actual AV growth has been included. Actual enrollment, we had just projections before. Actual staffing, including placement and hires. The final unaudited actuals, so where did our fund balance end the year, and the adopted state budget. And we'll get a little bit more into that as we go on with more information in January about that. So tonight we'll go over key themes and takeaways. We'll take a little look at the budget calendar and go over the significant changes since budget adoptions. We'll go over our budget assumptions, the numbers in the first interim financial report. We'll look at our multi-year financial projection, which is important because the board tonight will be asked to certify a positive certification, meaning we can meet our financial obligations in the current and 2 subsequent years. And then we'll really focus on the one-time COVID relief funding and the step down of those expenditures. And we'll end with some future considerations, the things that keep me up at night. So in terms of the key takeaways, so these are the things, if you stop listening to me after this, these are the things to focus on. We are not alone, but the long-term impact of the one-time COVID-19 and other one-time funding that was made available by the state and federal governments over the last several years. We still continue to have significant commitments in positions funded by one-time grants. And we've talked about at the budget study session in November, some thoughts on that. We have continued negative pressure from state mandated pension rates. While the STRS rate has, at least for the time being, plateaued at 19.1%, up over 10% from 2012-13 levels, which was at 8.25%. PERS continues to increase. And we've actually gotten new news since the first interim was completed with some updated PERS news as well. And no surprise, they continue the current projection of increasing rates in the out years. We look at interest rate pressures. I don't know if you guys saw the Fed today. They actually kept interest rates the same. So we're hoping that potentially some of those interest rate pressures will be alleviated. The real reason we look at that for our district is for assessed value growth. Interest rates being higher can negatively put pressure on our assessed value growth. One thing to really note, and really I'm thankful for this board, is that the district is in a really strong financial position based on the decisions that have been made by this board over the past 15 years. So we are in a strong financial position to face the challenges that may lay ahead. And then the state economy and budget deficit. Just last week, the Legislative Analyst Office gave a sobering report on the state budget, which included a $68 billion projected deficit, including $26 billion in overestimated or overprojected taxes for the prior and current year. So it'll be very interesting when the governor puts out his proposed budget in January, and we'll be back at the end of January or early February with the details of that report. Getting into it, where are we? We're at first interim, where we capture all activity through October 31st. The first interim financial report is required by Ed Code to be adopted by the Board of Trustees by December 15th of each year. In terms of significant changes since budget adoption, our secured taxes are a little bit lower than our projection, but those have been offset by higher unsecured and RDA taxes. Usually the RDA and secured taxes kind of even each other out, just based on their nature. And then unsecured taxes, which are property that is not really nailed down. So the best example of this is the airplanes at SFO that, the different airlines own. So those are actually higher in the current year, but they're much more volatile than our secured taxes or RDA revenues. In terms of staffing, we've obviously updated based on actual enrollment and staffing and employee placement, including all of our new hires and some additional investments that we've made. In terms of commitments, there's some one-time commitments included in this budget. Those include $1.1 million of site carryovers, which were detailed in the unaudited actuals report in September. A little under $400,000 in emergency preparedness as we move forward in updating our emergency preparedness throughout the district, as well as $2.4 million in one-time health and welfare premiums that have been included in our agreements with our labor partners. That is split evenly between the 2023-24 fiscal year and 24-25 fiscal year, as our health and welfare calendar is on a calendar year. Lastly, we've got some new grants. Probably the one you'll hear about more coming into the next few months is our Proposition 28 Arts and Music grant of about $1.1 million. We're really excited getting to work on that and allocating those funds for the 2024-2025 year. And so you'll be hearing more about that as we get into the new year.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Absolutely.
Is that Prop 28? I feel like the last time we asked about that, you didn't have a number. Is this?
Yeah,
Am
this
I
is,
right? This
you
is
are
the
correct.
number?
This
Okay.
is the number. Yeah, we got the number in November. So the last time after our budget study session,
Yeah.
when we just spoke about it. So yeah, we've been waiting and waiting,
Yeah.
and Brian Simmons has sent about 100 emails to the state on this, finally got that in. So
Oh,
we're
good.
really excited and to start allocating those monies out for the 24-25 year for our sites. We still are, I would.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
So it's obviously 1.1. What was the original thought that it was going to be? Do you remember what we were?
It was pretty close. I'd have to
Pretty
go
close
back
to that,
and
so
look
it's
at
not-
yeah.
Okay. Because I thought it was dramatically different, like by about $1 million or no.
No, so I want to make sure I'm clear. This is really confusing around, there's Prop 28 Arts and Music,
Yep.
and then there's the Arts and Music and Instructional
I
Materials
think I might
block
be confusing
grant.
that.
Because
Okay.
that is
That was the one that got
significantly
cut.
high. Yes.
This is the one that did not. Thank you. I'm
Perfect. You've
clarified.
got
Sorry,
that
that was
exactly
me.
now. Yep.
Good.
Trustee Griffin.
Quick question. I was in a class and I think I heard that COVID carryover funds are going to be allowed to be retained to use for emergency preparedness. Have you heard that?
For emergency, so the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials block grant, I know that there is flexibility in that grant to do that. I'd have to look at the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant to see if that's an allowable expenditure, but I can check that out and
I mean,
send
yeah,
that
because
to the
it
board.
was a class and,
Yeah.
and they were teaching that they were saying for auditors to, that's going to be something that's going to happen. So I'm just.
Yeah, a lot of the COVID funds were pretty broad in terms of the allowable uses. I hadn't heard of emergency preparedness, but that would be terrific.
Yeah, if you all could let us know. that'd be
Yeah,
great.
I'll look it up, and if not in my next weekly, the one after that.
Great.
All right, moving on to our assumptions. Obviously, we have a lot of assumptions used in there, so I'm not going to hit them all. But our assessed valuation is coming in right around where we projected at the budget adoption. In the out years, we project 3.5%, but we'll have to continue to monitor that, our assessed value tracker with our interest rate pressures. A couple other items to note. I noted the PERS and STIRS rate. STIRS remaining plateaued at 19.1%, although the STIRS board does have the authority to increase that by 1%, and the PERS rate continuing to increase, although it is slowing a little bit from some of the last couple of years, at least in the projection. Right. These are the unaudited actuals from last year, the adopted budget and first interim. I'm going to jump pretty quickly on there because this is combined unrestricted and restricted. And given the amount of restricted money that we've had, that kind of dominates. And it's important to look at those as two separate items. So with that, I will flip it to the next page where we've broken out unrestricted and restricted. So if you look at year one, unrestricted side is always what I like to focus on. We're showing a $259,000, so a very small deficit in the current year. It's important to note all of those one-time commitments that are included in the budget for this year. As we move out and you look at restricted numbers, we do see a very large spend down of restricted. This is related to the one-time money. Our budgeting philosophy around restricted funds has always been when the funds are allocated, then we budget them. But I want to be clear to the board. I do not expect us to spend $9.3 million. Sorry, I don't expect us to run in excess of $9.3 million in our restricted side. That's just what has been approved in overall board approved plans. I expect those actually to be spent over the next couple of years. So we are looking into potentially, given the significant amount of one-time money that we received, potentially looking at changing our policy and trying to do our best to show exactly which years that we expect those funds to be spent in. When we look into our multi-year projection, the unrestricted side shows approximately a 1% deficit in 24-25. That does include $1.2 million in one-time health and welfare commitments that we've made. And as you look out into the 2025-2026 year, we are projected at a small excess of revenues over expenditures and a strong unrestricted fund balance of about $34 million. So with that, staff is recommending a positive certification. What does that mean? It means that we believe that the district will be able to meet its financial obligations for the current and subsequent 2 fiscal years. So we're continuing to recommend a positive certification. All right. On to the one-time COVID and other funding. So we've been incredibly lucky over the last 3+ years to receive from both the state and federal government funds to support our students and through the district for safety and learning recovery around the impacts of COVID. The downside to these generous funding is that the revenues have now dried up the current year. We did not receive any new one-time grants. And with the LAO's recent report, we don't expect any new state money. And given the federal government's budget fights, we don't expect any significant increases to our federal money, especially in any one-time nature. So as that dries off, we need to step down those expenditures and do the process. At our November study session, we spoke, my apologies, we spoke of the step down plan, the original step down plan, which was approved in March of 2023. is included here. We received feedback from both administrators throughout the district as well as the board in some budget meetings that they had some thoughts around different positions that we may need to consider that were really important to students. The feedback that we received really focused around the positions that are supporting our students' mental health. So 2 FTE of mental health therapists that was included. Also, student success coordinators, those positions had been expanded during COVID. And they really, through the feedback we've received, really doing wonderful things for our students, and so especially some of our students who need the most support. And the campus safety specialists, that's 6.5 FTE, the largest, at least in terms of an FTE, that really making the campuses safe places for our students to be at. So the feedback we received around those positions relates to or reflects about $1.2 million of annual cost. And so in response to that feedback, the district embarked on a process to determine an alternate step-down plan. And at the November study session, staff made the following recommendations in order to retain the $1.2 million in staffing that we received feedback on. And so that was to slightly reduce our teachers on special assignment of about 1.2 FTE, really focusing on our staffing formula and reducing our staffing above that staffing formula by about 2 FTE. The COVID health aides, there were 3 COVID health aides that were projected to be stepped down over time. And the thought was that this would be a better time to do that. And then looking at our district office departmental budgets and making reductions to that to the tune of approximately $100,000. So the total savings around that is about $1 million in line with the positions noted around the feedback earlier. All right, I noted we would kind of finish up with future considerations and what I call the things that keep me up at night. So what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about property tax growth, the interest rate pressures. We did okay this year with the 6.1% assessed value growth. So I continue to look towards next year. What's that interest rate pressure going to do? I look at the phase out of the one-time funding, specifically the COVID grants, but not just the COVID grants. And then I'm really looking at the step down of the positions, funded by one-time funding. Negotiations, I should have noted in our multi-year projections that as the board has not approved them yet, we have not included any increases to our salary schedules that will be made in negotiations. So none of those increases were included in the MYPs that were looked at. We look at the continued pressure of state mandated pension rates, monitoring enrollment, and seeing if we're going to be flat or continuing our slow decline in terms of enrollment that our partner districts are seeing. We'll continue to monitor the interest rates and those impacts on property tax growth. And lastly, looking at special education needs and costs. And then given this isn't on here, you get one extra, looking at the state budget and really looking, we are incredibly lucky that we are about as insulated as you can be from significant impacts at the state level. But given the historic $68 billion projected deficit at the state level, you never know what plan the legislators are going to come up with. So we're going to need to be really carefully watching that and ensuring that, hopefully we are insulated from that. With that, I'm happy to open it up to questions. The last thing I would say is I'm asking for an approval of the budget report, including the adjustments, and most importantly, approval of the positive certification to send to the County Office of Ed that we can meet our financial obligations for the current and 2 subsequent years. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Hawkins? Trustee Jacobson.
Just on the changes that you made with the step down
Yes.
one-time expenditures, it looks like there's still another 200K or so that you need to come up with.
Yeah,
Is that
we're
right?
yeah we're still working on that. You know, we're hopeful that we can come. You know,
Yeah.
that come with some easier options. We've done most of the heavy lifting to get to $1 million, but Superintendent Booker and I are confident that that we can come with the rest before we adopt the budget next year.
I appreciate your effort to maintain those positions that are so important to our schools. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Trustee Chavez?
I have a couple of comments and just a couple of comments and one question. I want to say thank you to the entire business operations staff. This is a lot of work. And if you look at the attachment on the agenda, it's 158 pages. And I know that took a lot of time. So thank you for putting that together as well as our slide deck here. I do want to say the in-depth budget study session that we had last month, I think that really helped pave the way for us to go through this first interim quite smoothly. So I want to thank you for big thanks for that as well last month again. My question is back to slide number 11. I'm gonna touch upon what you said, Trustee Jacobson. I was wondering, I know we talked about this last month, the budget study session. I mentioned about the forecasted lower student enrollment across the board. And I was asking, if we have lower student enrollment, there should be some natural attrition that might not happen right away, but as we go a few years into that, if teachers retire or move, maybe there's less of a need to backfill some positions because of the forecast of low enrollment. And so I was wondering if we can use some of that offsetting to offset part of this so that we're not reducing other areas. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was I would love to see that mental health therapist number increase if we have any extra money, because I think that's really important right now for our students.
Yeah. In terms of the attrition, I think we're going to monitor our enrollment really carefully. Don Scatena's group does a great job. So we're getting enrollments in right now. You'll see an enrollment projection report likely in January. We're trying to move that up to really get our principals the earliest data we can. We actually spoke about it at our Tuesday principals meeting about some initial things that we were looking at around that. I think it's important to note that over the last couple of years, that is what we've done in terms of, they've made, the board has made significant investments in our multilingual learners. And so a lot of that additional staffing really has been made possible by some of that attrition. So we'll continue to monitor that and to the extent possible, use that. But, we don't, in the business office, we don't count our chickens before they hatch, but
True.
yeah.
You're cautious.
Superintendent Booker.
So superintendents sometimes count their chickens before they hatch. And
Uh-oh.
so part of I appreciate the question, Trustee Chavez. I think some of the competing interests as we get closer and closer toward developing our adopted budget in June is continuing to work with principals around programmatic ideas, student needs, all those kinds of things as inevitably come up during second semester for implementation in the 24-25 school year. Balancing that against, we talked about multilingual learners. We have serious ideas around supporting and building up our bridge program and steps we want to take there. Building up and supporting Peninsula. I think we all learned, it's not that we learned it, but it was reinforced at CSBA. The monies follow our most neediest students.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's going to be competing factors there for additional dollars. And then lastly, but not less importantly, negotiations and ensuring that we have the ability to come to the table with our employees, our educators, in a reasonable way that's supportive. And so all of those are competing issues as we come into the spring that we have to pay attention to. And that's part of what I said earlier in superintendent comments. Like it's a part of the year that I look forward to. Those, planning for 24, 25, planning negotiations, trying to meet all those needs and get excited for the 24, 25 school year. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And I have just one more question. I'll go ahead. Yeah. So I wanted to ask a question about the PERS and STIRS, because I know for the past 5 years, I mean, Trustee Lamb can probably speak to this. Well, we attend classes at the CSBA conference, and there's always a class where we're all trustees, we're always very passionate about trying to bring that mandated percentage down. If the percentage mandated is increased, but yet we don't have the funding to go with that, then of course we try to advocate for that. But I know it's good news that STIRS rates have plateaued. Is that kind of a new situation now? Because it seems like there's less pressure right there.
Yeah, so the good and the bad of it is,
Yeah.
yes, they've plateaued, which is really great news. But that was part of Governor Brown's plan when to support the financial viability of the STIRS program. So for years, for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, the rate had been 8.25%. And that was in 12, 13. And so over the next 7 years, it was proposed to increase that rate all the way up to 19.1%. So, that's just to kind of put it in perspective. Without that, we could have had 50 more teachers in the classroom,
Right.
or we could have given every one of our educators in this district a 10% pay raise.
And we would like to do that.
And we would love to
Yeah.
do those things. So it has been a significant pressure, but the good news part of it is we are now at the plateau. We've
Yeah, we're at the
gotten
plateau.
through that. The board's been able to make decisions in order for us to be able to weather that, which has really devastated other districts. And this district has been able to move through it with some pain, but not nearly as much as some other districts.
So thank you for that. And then with the PERS, it looks like in the forecast here, it's going up by about from 26.6% to 27.7, so about 1%. And then the following 28.30. Is that our forecast, or is that what they've already told us? It's gonna
Yeah.
be?
So overall, if you want to just look at that,
Mhm.
certificated, classifieds,
Yeah.
2/3, 1/3 roughly. So if you look at what overall to our budget, a 1% increase in PERS is about 1/3% increase. And when we talk about cost of 1%, it's about it. So that's how it.
And
kinda
is this
calculates out.
about the same percentage that it has been, or is the
That's
percentage increase
the-
declining?
The PERS rate, depending on which presentation I've given, PERS changes a lot. We only use the PERS rates that they publish. So we don't make up our own PERS rates.
Right.
But depending on how the stock market did in that year, depending on, the new actuarial tables, and most importantly, their rate of return that they're projecting, that's changed significantly, but it hasn't changed much in the last year.
Yeah.
We've been projecting a slow increase over the last year or so.
Well, just to clarify that, maybe I didn't come clear, but I wasn't suggesting that we make up the percentage. I was
I
thinking it was a forecast of our best guess for future years, but okay.
Correct. Yeah. The forecast from PERS, which we use, has not changed
Yeah, got it.
significantly in the last year.
Thank
So
you.
you're correct.
Thank you for that. Thanks. And thanks to the entire staff.
Great. Okay. Yes, Trustee Land.
So just a couple comments. One, I appreciate Trustee Jacobson talking about what you've done and the work that you've done, and I appreciate that. And I know we're getting close, but I really appreciate it. Second, I want to say thank you to Superintendent Booker. The investment that we've talked about is critical, and I really like hearing what you had to say, because I think that's exactly what we need to be worrying about. I know that we're going through, which brings me to my next point. I want to comment very negatively about the state and the budget. And I know what you're talking about, and we just had that conversation earlier. And I'm terrified that, we're going to get into problems. And one of the questions I do have, because a lot of districts it's so bad that they're starting to initiate layoff practices early. Are we going to have to do something along those lines? Are we insulated enough not to avoid something like that?
So
It's a tough
other
question.
than,
I'm sorry.
other than, spot, we talked about, there were a couple of the health aid, things like that, are very specific, not necessarily to, one thing I noted at the beginning of this presentation was a key takeaway is the strong financial position that the district is in.
Yeah.
And so even if we receive some bad news, as long as it's not catastrophic from the state, one of the things a healthy fund balance allows the district to do is wait and get all the information in before making any drastic decisions. You know, I've been in districts that, the state budget is so impactful on them that they can't wait.
Yeah.
And so they have to
That's what I'm hearing.
initiate the budget layoffs now, because who knows what the actual budget's going to be.
Yeah.
In our district, because of the board's actions over the last 15 years, we're in a position that we can wait, see what the impact is. If there's a one-time hit to the fund balance, we can absorb it. And then we can take the time that's needed if there are significant impacts.
I just want to say thank you to the whole business department for all of the work that you guys have done, because this is the insurance that we need to keep
Yeah.
things going in the right way. And I'm really proud of us for that. So
Yeah.
I know you said that to the board, but you guys guide us, and it really helps. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we're a team.
Yeah.
Moving to the next thing. So I just want to say one more thing about the state budget. I hate the way they do their budgeting, and we are ending up in a terrible position. And it kind of echoes what Trustee Chavez is talking about. It's like the burden is always on the districts, and it gets harder and harder. I hate to even think that they're going to do deferrals, and I'm just editorializing, and you're the one who knows it. But, but low COLA, how are they going to pay for things? They're going to put it on us, and I know it's coming, and I'm so proud of us that we can insulate ourselves a little bit, but it's going to be tough if we keep going this way. And I think as elected officials, I'm really talking to all of us, we need to do the advocations to be able to say, this is not okay, because this has been business as usual for 20, 30 years. And it's just going to keep going this way until something dramatically changes at the state level. But I really feel like we are doing what we need to do, but we're not doing enough to convince the state to do it differently.
You're absolutely
And
right.
that's what's driving me crazy.
And Trustee Land, I think one time you said, if you want us to increase that percent, show me the money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But that's why we
that-
depend
that-
on our delegates too.
Exactly. So I just wanted to say, I just want to give final praise, because I know I just wanted to just get that out about the state and what they do with budgeting, because I think it's horrible and just disgusting. But I do want to praise us again for the work that you're doing, and thank you for the report. And I think we're doing good. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Can I get a motion to
I'll move
approve?
adoption.
Second.
Thank you. So motion by Trustee Griffin, second by Trustee Land. Trustee Jacobson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Chavez?
Yes.
Trustee Land?
Yes.
Trustee Griffin?
Yes.
I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're moving on to item 10. I have something to read beforehand. Do we have Mr. Niblin on the line? Great. Okay. I would like to say a few words before I introduce item 10. Employee issue regarding November 16th, 2023 board meeting. To clarify, at the November 16th, 2023 board meeting, in the course of public comment, Trustee Chavez asked Dr. Samia Showman, the district's Bridge School principal and manager of oh my gosh, supportive. I had your title here, sorry. Go back. And manager of academic support programs, sorry. It changed. Let's see. Okay. If she paid everyone who came to comment that evening for their comments. After the meeting, it came to my attention that Dr. Showman had expressed concern about that comment by Trustee Chavez. I also know that Trustee Chavez reached out to Dr. Showman by email after the meeting and apologized for this comment, telling Dr. Showman that she intended the comment as a joke, but also recognizing that it was not funny. I want to state that this comment by Trustee Chavez does not reflect the position nor the sentiments of this Board of Trustees. We want to ensure the community that all comments and concerns that come to this board are heard and considered, and that we strive to maintain a high level of professionalism and decorum, and that we are committed to treating all members of the community with courtesy and respect. Also, the board is committed to providing the best possible support for all of the district staff members, including Dr. Showman, in carrying out the important work that they do for our children. With that said, I believe that Trustee Chavez wanted to say a few words. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Andrea Zuniga. I didn't have the final version of that, so I didn't know. Let's see, I have a couple of notes here to read, so thank you. I do want to speak briefly about this matter. Let's see. I would like to start by mentioning that I have 2 pages of, I'm trying to consolidate it here, everybody. I know it's late. I would like to start by mentioning that I have no intention of ever saying anything hurtful or harmful to anyone. But because this discussion item was placed on the agenda, I would like to briefly mention what occurred and to be completely transparent. Because I think some of it, what I just heard right now was misunderstood. I love public comment. I take notes. Every person that speaks, I take pages of notes. Tonight I have 3 pages of notes. On November 16th, I have 18 pages of notes. We had 65 comments. I advocate for public comments. I advocate for the public to speak. I wish we could go, unlimited amount of public comment. I think public comment's important. So I think that part was probably misunderstood, but I will start out by saying that there was a comment that was made by myself that I did not intend to hurt Dr. Shulman. So I do want to briefly mention what occurred to be completely transparent. As in any workplace, people sometimes say something jokingly, and sometimes it's at the wrong time. And this was clearly at the wrong time. During the November 16th board meeting, 5-minute break, I walked up to Dr. Samia Shulman to give her a hug and say hello. I support the Bridge program. I've visited there twice. I've attended their graduation. Whenever I see Dr. Shulman, I come up and say hello and see how it's going. I mentioned, because I take notes, I have 18 pages of notes, and all the notes, there were about maybe 7 or 8 comments that the public was providing accolades and shout outs to Dr. Shulman. So that's why I had that in my mind. And I mentioned to her that she received many positive shout outs during a public comment. And I asked her jokingly if she paid folks for giving such nice compliments, not paying, not about the number of people that came, but about such nice compliments that she had received. I also said that I was joking. Our board meeting concluded about 11 p.m. And when I arrived home, I sent the following email to Dr. Shulman because I realized what I said may have been hurtful given the current climate that she's been facing. And that was definitely not my intent. So as I drove home, I thought about, well, Dr. Shulman didn't laugh when I said that. So let me think about it a little bit more. We had a little bit of conversation after I said that until Trustee Land raised the gavel and said, the meeting's coming back into session. So I told her, even though I told her during our conversation that I was joking, I still wanted to formally apologize. I've not received any response to the email from that night, but I know that I was made aware that Dr. Shulman had received it. But I wanted to share some excerpts from my email that was sent at 12:30 a.m. after the board meeting. Hi, Sammy. I just put up in front of my home. I'm reflecting on what I said to you. Sometimes my coworkers joke to me and say something like, how much did you pay them to say that compliment? And it's a joke just to tease me. I heard many compliments about you tonight, which you undoubtedly deserve and so much more. So when I asked you if you paid everyone who was giving you a compliment, I said that I was joking, but I'm thinking that it was clearly not a funny joke and not appropriate at the time, and I want to apologize. I think you're amazing and you're committed to helping students be successful. We are better because of you. I would love to have the opportunity to have coffee or lunch with you. I'm concerned that you don't feel supported. Thanks, Terry. And the reason why I mentioned that is because Dr. Shulman had expressed some concerns that she had with me during that break, and that's what I was addressing there too. So I want to thank everyone for allowing me to share what occurred, and including my apology to Dr. Shulman. I still stand by my apology for my email. I'm really sorry. Thank you. And I would the offer still. I mean, I still would love to chat with you, have coffee, tea, lunch, whatever, just to talk and I totally support you. Thank you.
Okay, are there any comments from our board? I would actually like to say something. You know, this type of situation, we have to understand when we're having a time of deep hurt, that it's really not time to joke and that words have consequences. and words have power. Just like what happened earlier today. What I really appreciate about this board, when I first was elected, the level of professionalism that I came into was amazing. I didn't always agree with all of the trustees. We always weren't friendly, but we were very respectful towards each other. Whether, like, we joked around, but we were very, very careful on what we were saying and how we were saying it. Now, because they're also my elders, I also had to look at myself and say, hey, how am I having dialogue with them? And what I learned from them was a level of professionalism that, like I said, I'd never seen before. And seeing other boards in other areas, I was very grateful for them. So I think everyone, we need to remember that our words have consequences. Our words have power. Our words mean things. And I'm sorry, but it was very inappropriate. So I really hope that what you're saying is coming as an apology and not a justification for what happened. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, like I said, when I sent the email, it was about an hour after our board meeting had concluded. I really felt like I needed to say something formally in an email, even though I talked to Dr. Showman and made it clear that I was joking when I said, did you pay everybody to say those really nice compliments? And I wanted to reflect on it as I drove home, because sometimes I let things sink in and I think about it. And so immediately I wanted to send an email before another day had passed. So yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, President Andrea Zuniga. It is heartfelt, and that's why it was sent the same night as the board meeting. Yeah, thank you.
Trustee Land.
So I just want to say thank you to President Andrade Zuniga for the first opening comment about professionalism of the board. I think that's the key here. And you back that up with what your statement was, your personal statement, which is, the way in which this board has operated for many years. And I will say the same thing. Coming to this board, I've learned a lot about how to be part of a meeting, how to really hold that line between being personable and joking and not. And I just want to say to Trustee Chavez that, we've been through how many meetings now? 4 major meetings where we've had so many comments in this very difficult, very contentious, very political problem. And it has affected so many people, and particularly Dr. Showman. And I think it's really important that this was a forum for you to be able to say what you said and apologize to Dr. Showman. And I think that's very important. So thank you for doing that. And again, I just want to affirm to Dr. Showman our support from the board and what you do. And so thank you for everything that you do as part of this district. So thank you. So I think this is a good thing. Hopefully we can heal from here.
Okay. I'll have to open it up now to public comment. Do we have anybody online?
There's one hand raised.
Okay, go ahead.
Simona, I will now promote you. You may unmute and begin.
Yes, hi, hope you can hear me. I just wanted to reflect on what you all just said in regards to comments to Dr. Shulman. And something really struck with me. You've mentioned words have consequences. Love that. Absolutely love that. Except when it comes to the Jews, somehow that doesn't apply. When Dr. Shulman spews hate toward the Jews, where are the consequences for the words? When things are getting taught to our kids to lies about Israel, words should have consequences. When will the teachers have the accountability? When will the schools in your district be accountable for what we teach our children? Words indeed should have consequences. And somehow it doesn't apply to the Jews. That is not okay. I'd like to see the school actually do something about this.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I should have done this before as a point of order. I'm going to limit the comments to about a minute because it is 10:15, and actually I should have asked the board if we would have taken comment at a certain hour. So out of respect, for our board, I'm going to leave it to 1 minute comments. Thank you. Okay, next.
We have one more online and one in person.
Okay, so at this point, I will cap it. Thank you. Go ahead.
Michael Russ, I'm promoting you. You may unmute and begin.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I must say I wasn't planning on speaking, but I feel obliged to do so. Thank you for sharing what happened in the last meeting. I was also present in the last meeting and was part of the public comments shared. Board Member Zuniga, I understand your concern. In the last meeting, you were also the person who mentioned that it is not okay that people are laughing at Shulman's children's name. And words matter. You just told that to us. And calling an educator, calling their son jihad, which I hope by now we all understand the true meaning of that word. And
I'm
for
sorry, I'm
this
gonna cut
board
this
not
one
to
down.
say anything is
They're-
not
They're
okay.
talking about her children. Come
And
on.
not about our children.
No, that is not acceptable. No way. Can I get the next speaker, please? No,
Lisa Wright?
no.
Excuse me. Earlier tonight, we talked about tolerance, but this doesn't feel tolerant at all. It feels like bullying. There was a private dispute, it sounds like, between Trustee Chavez and Dr. Showman. And I don't understand why we're taking everybody's time tonight to air this grievance. It does feel like bullying. It sounds like Trustee Chavez apologized. And if we want to be leaders and teach our children how to be gracious, it seems like we ought to be gracious too, and we ought to model that behavior. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, go ahead. Mhm.
I just want to reiterate what I said earlier and why I wanted to remove that item from the agenda. I did feel that this was not necessary to bring before the public. The public was not aware of this situation. I think that restorative justice should start with the parties involved, and it's not necessary to publicly shame anybody. And I don't think that was a good move on our board's part.
Yes, Trustee Lang. Okay, order. Please. You can leave. You can leave. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You can leave. Hey, hey.
Guys. You can go.
Okay. Trustee Griffin.
You know, I certainly disappointed with the evening's events. And I guess I bear responsibility like probably everybody in this room. I had no knowledge of any of that. And maybe because I don't know, you know, I'm very concerned, you know, and I want to know what's going on. And if something's on the agenda, I didn't have any knowledge of that. I did need to know what was going on. Whether what was said was taken out of context, I think we all, as board members, have a responsibility to conduct ourselves in a professional manner. And I'm sorry to have to be here tonight. And I hope we can move past this because this has not been a good night for the board. So.
Trustee Land.
I'm going to just say I'm going to take responsibility for some of this because as president, I had to put this on the agenda, or at least was part of that. And I'm going to tell you why. There was a complaint made by an employee regarding this situation. Now, again, it's because it involves a trustee. It is not handled at the district level as a personnel issue might. We actually have we're held to a different standard because we are elected officials, and therefore it needs to come to this board. There's other options that we can have county council talk about, such as censure. These are some issues that could be brought up. But as this came up and how this has been handled, this is a matter that has an employee complaining about a trustee. And so I think it was handled in a proper manner. I appreciate Trustee Chavez's remarks. And I think the matter is done as far as I'm concerned. I'm hoping that we can move on and heal from this. But I think it had to be addressed at this level, at the board level, because it can't be handled at the level of the superintendent or the HR department. So that's where I think we have to be.
You know, we're gonna.
I know.
I just want to wrap this up and just say one more thing that I want to thank everybody for listening and for, you know, giving me grace, I would say. When I went up to, I know it's too bad that Dr. Showman left, but I understand why she did. When I went up to Dr. Showman during our break, and I had all my pages and notes, and her name's on, rightfully so, her name's on a bunch of my comments, you know, positive comments. I went up to her to give her a hug and to say, hey, how are you doing? You have a lot of positive comments tonight. And then I don't know what happened, like a mistake, obviously, when I said, did you pay everybody for that? Now that's, I'm imperfect, right? But that wasn't my intention. My intention was to go up and say hello and to compliment her on the number of comments that she had, because I take public comments important. That night I had 18 pages, like I said, 65 comments, but we weren't all the way done with the comments yet. And so I just wanted to say that I support Dr. Showman's work, and that comment doesn't reflect what I think about Dr. Showman. You know, it was, you say something and then sometimes you say an afterthought, but that afterthought, it was meant as a joke. And then I told her right then and there, I'm just joking, but clearly, as we finished the board meeting, I still was listening to the rest of the 65 comments in our board agenda that we had, our board packet that we were still going through. That's when as I drove home, I reflected on that. A lot of times I reflect on something, and I will reflect on what happened tonight too, Trustee Andrea Zuniga, because I did not intend to harm you or I know I think you mentioned you felt like I went behind your back. We'll talk about that later because it's not on the agenda. But
Again, right, I
yeah,
asked
yeah.
you
we
don't have to talk
Yeah,
about this
yeah,
now.
yeah.
And that's the problem, is that we ask you about certain things, please, this, that, the other, and you don't listen to us. We're asking you to stop with the joking, stop with the bantering, and you still continue. I don't want to get into this right now.
Yeah, sure.
It's not the time.
Yeah.
But it's just like Trustee Griffin said, we have to hold each other to a different standard.
Yeah, we can talk another time because I don't see any bantering, but
So
okay.
what
thanks.
is do we have to have Mr. Niblin say anything? Okay. All right.
May I say one thing?
Yes, please.
You know, I'm going to look at the superintendent. I'm going to apologize because we read a book and I'm like, why are we reading a book? Apparently we should have read that book and reread it, because we've totally missed the boat on being a team and unity and the purpose we're here for. But anyway, it's not your fault. Thank you for that book.
May I say one more thing? There were some hurtful comments made just now to Dr. Showman publicly that would not have been said if this was not made public. That's all.
Really? Because they've been always said. They're always being said. I mean, that's the problem with this community, is that we don't respect each other. It makes me really sad that we have to get to this point. Still, someone has to criticize our children. Do you know what that feels like? to someone calling you and asking you to hoping that you die. Like, that's insane. I'm just, wow. I don't even know what else to say. We need to go home. It's late. The next item is future board agenda items.
Sorry, there's two more board
Oh,
operations.
can we
Both of
table-
those, all we're asking is that they go on to consent calendar
Great,
next,
let's move them to
next board
consent.
meeting.
I think we're all okay with that.
Yeah.
Anybody opposed? No.
Okay, future board agenda items. The bridge students with their soccer championships, please.
Oh, yeah.
And then the I'm not sure what came about the students with the with the climate
Oh,
climate club.
I'll follow up with them.
Thank you. And I think that was it. Does anybody have any more items for the agenda?